Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Salutations, everybody. We hope each and every single one of you are doing well. Welcome to Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast. This is episode number 2. I am one of your hosts, Matty. You can call me Mr. Matty if you'd like. And I'm joined by the
Karak with ACG. I
had a nickname for you.
Oh, go for it. What was it?
I was gonna call you the glowing one. I was thinking of Fallout a little bit. The glowing one, Karak of ACG. Your skin's glowing a little bit. Anyway, sorry.
Do I have the golden hue going on?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah,
you look great, is what I'm saying.
Obviously, but I was going to say you saying everybody, you hope everybody. I just hope every other person is having a good time. I hope the odd-numbered people are having a horrible day. I hope the even-numbered people, I hope you guys are having a great day.
Do you have something against odd numbers?
You know what? Nah, I'm not as chipper as you.
Okay, that's
fair. You can
balance.
wish everybody has. Yeah, you can wish everybody has. We need a gray Jedi. It'll speak to the Star Wars discussion. We need a little bit of a balance.
We need a Kreia in here.
We do. Well, I'm pretty much in all gray now that I think about it. So,
and I am in all black. So.
Yeah, there we go. We don't need good Jedi. Screw that shit.
Anyway, for all of you who are listening, wherever you are, you heard we have a little intro tune that plays before our episodes now. It's got all the little Xbox sounds in there. Karak, I don't know if you listened yet, but it's got the rare achievement sound at the end of it. So
best sound ever.
It absolutely is. It sounds so nice. It's one of my favorite sounds now. I think it's because of this show. So we have that now. A lot of people were asking about that. Another question I want to answer real quick is a lot of people were asking about us getting Chris Raygun on from Sacred Symbols, because Chris is a big Xbox guy, big Halo guy. And I wanted to just make sure people know up front, we're definitely anticipating bringing him on. And we want to look at other guests and all that stuff because we have free reign with the show. We can do whatever the hell we want. Phil, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I would love to get Phil Spencer or just, Larry Erb or just any major Xbox player here on this show. We would love to do that because it would be a good discussion. And of course, it would help us grow. And we think our listeners would be excited. So speaking of which, if you are a listener, you like this show, you want to support us, you want to get early access, this show goes live for early access every Thursday over on patreon.com/laststandmedia, and it'll hit free feeds like Spotify, Apple/Google Podcasts, and plenty more on Sunday. Also, if you want to watch the video version, you want to see my mug, Karak's mug, head over to the Last Stand Media YouTube channel where we've been doing really well over there. We have a lot of people very excited about the video version. About a 20,000 listener show again. So the excitement is real. And I feel like our trajectory for this show is the same as Xbox. Like, it can only go up. So we just want to thank all of the early adopters once again for giving us a shot, listening to our bullshit. And we promise we'll make it not worth your while. Now, Karak, we like to pimp early on here. What have you been up to, brother?
I did the Star Wars video this morning.
Hell
about
yeah.
Star, and it sounds like you're going to do one or have done one, and then we'll talk about it during today's video. Discussed a little bit about the Indiana Jones stuff, which was cool. Did a video on that. And now just getting back into reviews. I would say the big stuff is we've got the D&D podcast pretty much solidified. Got some stuff that I haven't seen before, which is pretty cool to actually be doing some stuff that I haven't seen like other channels doing. It's hard to jump into some new avenue of YouTube because most of the time the people who've been there for a little while are like multi-billion, because remember you and I talked about that video I wanted to do where I would break the myths of video games, like how far could a bad guy hear? And then I started looking and dude, it's like some guy with like 16 million viewers is like using, special high-fangled equipment.
Yeah.
So the D&D stuff is probably the big thing for right now. And then reviews
Right on. Yeah, for me, I'm hoping to get the reviews going. I got the Hitman 3 and Medium in my sights. We'll see how that pans out. Like you, just the type of news you can't ignore. Indiana Jones, big Star Wars news. Of course, that is going to headline our show because especially with Indiana Jones, we're going to see how this really impacts Team Xbox. So it should be a really fun discussion. But yeah, cover that on my channel. I was just funny enough telling my girlfriend, I was like, January is notoriously slow, so I'm really not looking forward to it. But it has been anything but. With Mass Effect leaks.
It's been crazy.
LucasFilm Games and Elder Scrolls 6 teases, and it's just been pretty good start to the year, to be honest. And so maybe that'll make up for all the game delays that are eventually going to happen.
Oh, dude, for sure. Can you keep talking just for a second? My dog is doing something weird. I think he just needs out. I can't tell. He's never done this during our podcast.
Go check your animal. I'll handle the beginning of the show.
He's given me the guilt eye, and I can't tell if it's like I've forgotten something, but he rarely does that.
I have a treat for you when you come back anyway.
Okay. Hang on.
So, yeah, that's what I've been up to, ladies and gentlemen. Karak's just taking a step out for a sec. In the meantime, let's get into our first patron write-in, and then we're going to bounce this back to Karak. He has no idea what's coming his way. Number one comes from Anton K. You can all write in at patreon.com/laststandmedia, where almost 10,000 of you support that. And by the way, if we hit 10,000, we can do Defining Duke Plus or whatever the hell we're going to name that show. And we'll get you guys bonus content. I think that'll be more feasible down the line, by the way, when we have things like Halo Infinte to do a spoiler cast for. And as Xbox starts to pick up their releases, we'll have more to discuss there. Anyway, Anton K writes in, I looked this up because I was like, who the hell is Zach Brown? But it looks identical to Karak. And I got to get him to Google this. Hey, Zach Brown and Ryan McCaffrey. So this is apparently my lookalike. I see it every fucking show now. Ryan McCaffrey is me, and I am Ryan McCaffrey. Do you think the announcement of the initiative's new quadruple A title, Perfect Dark, is underwhelming? I loved Perfect Dark and Perfect Dark Zero, but a reboot is the first project from your new quadruple A studio. Seems uninspired and, quite frankly, a waste of talent that was poached from top-tier developers. Why not a new IP? Something to get really excited about. Perfect Dark? Really? Come on, give me something new. Thanks, guys. Your new podcast is the absolute best on the planet to shag to. Okay, Anton. Now, before I answer any single aspect of your question, I need to, Karak, people are having sex during our show. How do you feel? Like, I'm not okay with that. Like, if your intimate engagement involves my voice, I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that.
It's pretty weird.
Anton, I don't know what's going on where you decided that, leaving our show on while you went to work was okay, but it just never again. It's not
what's funny?
Here.
I don't know about you either, Matty. I'm sure you and I have talked about this on your podcast, but I'm also not a talker with my friends about sex, ever. I don't want to know if any of my friends are banging their chicks or what they do when they do it. Like, because none of my friends, all my friends know. Like, don't bring it up around Karak. Like, I don't want to know. But I have some friends of friends who will tell me, like, they're sitting there chatting like the bros, that you would see in a movie about sex. And I'm like, dude, seriously? I don't want to know if a podcast person is doing it. I don't want to know. Like, I joke about it, but I don't want to know if he's doing that while we're talking to the dulcet tones of Karak and Matty discussing Xbox. Like,
I was about to say, what if he just has that in the background like that?
Or we should subtly speed up, but behind the scenes we'll like chat each other and speed up to see if his rhythm goes faster. We'll be like, we can talk back and forth. Like, does it go quicker during my hot fire 5 question thing that I did to you? Like, not quite sure, man. I don't know. It's creepy.
Yeah, Anton, never do this again.
Yeah,
anyway,
never do it again.
Writes in saying that the announcement of the initiative's quadruple A Perfect Dark title was underwhelming, and he thought it was a waste of talent. Now, I think that's a bit preemptive. I don't think we know enough to call it a waste of talent until we see it, but perhaps it's just in reference to the IP. I'm not a huge Perfect Dark fan. I remember when the Rare Replay came out, I went back to Perfect Dark, gave it a roll. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's not something I'm super in love with. So when I saw a Perfect Dark reboot, I was kind of excited because it never captured me. So I was thinking to myself, like, oh, okay, this might be its chance to. Now, I don't know what constitutes as a quadruple A title. I think that's just been a lot of PR. It seems like
it's Microsoft just full of shit.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems that way. So I think anything with that level of speaking would definitely be underwhelming. But personally, I don't think I think one of the biggest issues with Xbox in general is they have so many IP that they have just left dormant. So for me, seeing Perfect Dark come back was kind of nice. Because they've tried new IP. Let's talk Scalebound for a second, and we saw the massive mishandling of that. So I don't know. I like the idea of them just going back to that pool and bringing old things back, because their competitor seemingly is leaving that in the dust. And we'll talk about that later on this show with PlayStation and Killzone. And so I think it's smart that Microsoft is working on their older IP as well.
Can't win, can you?
You can't. No. Oh, well. Karak, I promised you 5 roaring hot questions last week.
Let's go.
And I was not a man who forgot. Oh, you're just raring to go. See, you got me nervous because I was not ready. You were ready. But perhaps mine are a little bit more off the wall.
They probably are.
Yes. Ready. It starts off nice, though. Okay. Jade Empire, KOTOR, or Mass Effect. Only one can exist.
Jade Empire.
The rest are lost. Oh, wow. Without even a hesitation there.
I love the others, but Star Wars exists in other worlds. Mass Effect could exist in other worlds. Jade Empire will probably... You'll never see anything like that again. Steampunk, Chinese, magic. It's just not... like, to me, that's a magical world.
Oh my God, man! I know it's such a shame. They renewed the trademark, and I was like,
I know.
Maybe they're doing something.
Yeah, and they had an artist draw some stuff up because a DeviantArt guy accidentally posted that he was hired by Microsoft to do some prelims, but never went anywhere.
Okay, so you were ready with that one. Mm-hmm. Finger was on the trigger. Maybe not for this one though. Who would win in a fight, you or Craig from Halo Infinite?
Oh, me, dude.
All day?
Yeah, all day. All day. Craig Finn, if you look at him, he looks a little bit like one of those friends you have that a little slow on the take. I'd run circles around him.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, he's big. I just wouldn't let him catch me. I'd get in the Warthog and I'd drive over his ass. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not an idiot. I wouldn't go fist to fist with the dude. He's probably 700 pounds. I mean, maybe he's got nuts. We don't know if aliens' reproductive organs are in the same place, but I'd probably try that. And if it didn't work, I'd jump in a Warthog.
How do you think all the brutes came about?
Yeah. I'm hoping that's the way it is because there's other ways that creatures procreate that are gross as fuck. But yeah, I'd win.
Okay, this one's a little more serious. We've seen Xbox games come to Nintendo Switch, but what's a Switch game you'd want on Xbox?
Raving Rabbids.
Fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, Raving Rabbids would be my game of the year every year for 5 years.
Yeah, for those, I know this is an Xbox and PC show, but for those of you who maybe have a Switch and you've never played Mario and Rabbids, it's an XCOM style Mario game, and it is absolutely incredible.
Breaks the limits of how to take a genre and move it forward, and with a current IP, not a new IP, but a current IP. Two, technically.
It's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. So Karak and I talk about it all the time on Ham Radio Podcast.
It got me into the Switch. I mean, I like the Switch, but I think that was the one where I was just like, okay, I was wrong. Like, obviously, you know, they knew what they were doing with this.
You're like, I'm happy this thing exists now.
Yeah, Mario and Rabbids, by the way, two IPs I hate. I'm not a Mario fan at all.
I'm not a Rabbids fan, so yeah.
And I'm not a Rabbids fan, and that just...
Yep. All right, number 4 for you, Indiana Jones or Star Wars. Given today's news that we're going to be talking about, you got to pick one.
Yeah, Star Wars, just because, Star Wars. That's
interesting.
That's difficult, actually. But, you know, because Indiana Jones, dude, not to be rude, I talked about this in my video. I'm not even sure if we're going to see Nazis because of the current world and the way, like, who does he go against? And Indiana Jones is a really small time frame where Star Wars is like, you know,
everywhere.
What you and I like the what do you call it? Old Republic, yeah. So I mean, Indiana Jones is great though. Like I grew up with that shit. Like Indiana Jones is what got me to think adventure was real, and Indiana Jones got me to think mysteries were real. Like Tomb Raider and Uncharted do it, but Indiana Jones made me think there were hidden cities with people in them. Like, and that's what caught my fire as a kid.
All right, last one. In one sentence, break down your absolute hatred for Witcher 3 on Nintendo Switch.
Graphically, it's bad enough that it impacts the awesome gameplay and story experience of Witcher 3.
Oh, man. That'll never get old for me. I told Karak, we did the Ham Radio podcast, and it's where I learned that Karak just was not a fan of what he saw. I should emphasize. Not the game itself, but what he saw for Witcher 3. On Switch, and I was just like, nope, you're never living this down. All right, thank you for participating, Karak.
Yeah, those are fun. We definitely need to do those each podcast.
I was going to say,
they're very fun to do.
Yeah, just pop quiz at random moments. It doesn't even have to be in the intro. It could be the middle of the news. That could be a good thing. All right. Avery Cope also wrote in, this is in the same breath as the initiative write-in. I wanted to tap this one. And hey, Chex Mix Matty and Kale Smoothie Karak. I've been thinking about the huge amount of unused IP Microsoft is sitting on, specifically from Rare. Much like the initiative is doing with Perfect Dark, why don't they spread the IP around other first-party studios, since Rare seems more interested in original projects like Everwild and Sea of Thieves? Banjo-Kazooie is the easiest example. But what about Conquer, Cameo, or Viva Pinata? I personally think a Jet Force Gemini reboot with a Star Fox Adventure style of gameplay would be a huge hit. What are your thoughts, and what unused IP from Microsoft would you like to see in the new generation? Loving the podcast so far. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Avery. I wanted to tap this one in. We have a lot of questions and great write-ins, so I wanted to try to squeeze as many people in as possible. I thought this one would fit at this particular point here. I mean, I got to say, when it comes to unused IP, I don't mean to piggyback what was written in here by Avery, but Jet Force Gemini, when I played that on Rare Replay, where you could remap the controls so it played like a standard third-person shooter,
right?
I would love to see more of that series. I would love to see more of that series. But yeah, like I mentioned kind of with Anton, a lot of Microsoft IP have been left to the wayside. And I think Rare is the biggest offender because they kind of did the Rockstar thing. New IP, and just everyone loved everything they were doing. And so now they've just got this wealth of IP sitting around and no one to handle it. Do you feel the same about Rare though?
So the thought you're saying is that Rare, we had hoped Rare would do an IP we already knew?
That, or of course that the IP from Rare would be picked up from other studios, because okay. I don't have the deep infatuation with Rare that a lot of people do outside of like, Conquer, really, just because of how crude it is and how, that is just such like a game of its time, essentially.
Okay.
But, really when I look at it, like I'm not as in love with everything they've done as others, but I know a lot of people always bring up Rare in the Xbox discussion of like, they're leaving all these resting. So is there, when it comes to an unused Microsoft IP, does it even fall in the Rare category for you?
No, because Sea of Thieves is the current style of game success that a lot of companies are going for, which is the game that continues to run, and people jump in and jump out. And it's obviously done incredibly well for them. So I don't know if a Viva Pinata, which is probably my favorite game of all time from them, would have done as well. I would like it. But yeah, I'm not bothered. It is funny that you pick two questions that are complete opposite ends, where one person's like, what a waste for a fucking Perfect Dark, and the other person's like, Perfect Dark's awesome, which I think is the way how selfish we are as gamers. Not in a bad way. We're just selfish. Where it's like, if it doesn't appeal to us, it's a waste. If it does appeal to us, it's the greatest choice of all time that's ever been made by a company, right? Like, that's the line we draw in the sand. So no, I love Rare. I don't have the issue with Rare like you do either. Like, I'm not saying you do, but neither one of us have the love or the hate for Rare, which just to us, I think it's just Rare makes games. We've liked some of them, we've disliked some of them, but they've got a lot of IPs, and I think you will see them. I also think that Microsoft has tried internal stuff. There is rumors of a couple titles that were tried and they just didn't work out. Microsoft also shut shit down, Scalebound. They will shut shit down. I just don't think people realize that what we see isn't everything. Like, I bet you there's multiple games that Phil's been like, let's look at it from the side. He looks at it, looks at like all the benefits, and is like, yeah, this isn't working right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's why I think a lot of people like our show, because we are Xbox fans, but I don't think we're on the level of absolute love of everything they've done in
I'm
history.
Not going to fake it, man.
Yeah.
No way.
We're staying true to ourselves here. All right, question number 2. To start off our show, Anu Sakani writes in, hello there, General Matty plays in ACG. I have no experience with the Xbox brand at all beyond playing Alan Wake on PC, but I've enjoyed listening to you guys so far. I must confess, I'm very confused on why not only you two, but Colin and Chris and many of my friends talk up Gears of War as this amazing must-play series. I've always been rather turned off by the character designs, Marcus Phoenix in particular, and even though the gameplay looks tight, nothing I've heard about the story, setting, or atmosphere has really interested or grabbed me. Yet I'm potentially open to trying them out via PC just to see what all the fuss is about. Can either of you sell me on why I should give Gears of War a shot, and which entry should I start with? Keep up the great work, you two. Glad to have you in the Last Stand family. Thank you, Anu. All right, so I mentioned last week how I was going to do a Gears of War marathon. We're about halfway through Gears of War 3 now. We finished the Ultimate Edition of Gears of War 1. Cool. We finished 2, and now we're halfway through 3. So I don't believe you can play outside of Ultimate Edition. I don't think you can play any of these on PC. Of course, 4 and 5 you can get on PC. But your the availability of these games is kind of limited since you're on PC only, as far as I'm aware. And so I would say, of course, starting off with 4 would probably be your best shot, because for me, I fell off Gears and my love for that series for a while. And then 4 pulled me back in. And I was like, wow, I forgot how good this franchise was. I will also say, I think the appreciation comes from its passing of the torch, right? Because when you look at what happened with Halo, where they moved from Bungie to 343, we kind of saw how the series stagnated with ideas, and it didn't really pan out as well as how the transition to the Coalition has with Gears of War. And so now I think with that successful pass of the torch, there's an appreciation there. But also, as someone who's been running through these 3 games, they're very old, right? Like 06, 08, and 2011. I mean, they're very old, and they hold up pretty well for the most part. You know, you can feel the general progression of, 1, they didn't know if they had something. 2, they realized, holy crap, we have a sequel. So they actually built more on the story, gave some real character development to Dom. And then in 3, they're like, we've got something. They kind of knew it, and you can feel, because the game's much longer. The whole squad gets development, from like Coltrane to Baird to Dom and Marcus. And it's funny because it's the only series I know where they explain the intro of the very first game in the 3rd entry in the series.
Yeah, right.
It's amazing. So I think kind of the progression of the series, it's consistently good in my opinion. I think there's a lot there. You can feel the gameplay is, you said it right. It's tight. I would just say, if you're into Halo, it's all about power weapons in my opinion. In Halo, you're switching out weapons constantly. Gears plays a lot like that. There's a lot of Halo DNA there. So I feel like if you enjoy Halo, you'll like Gears. Although I think the storytelling is a little bit better in Halo. Gears, as it takes itself more seriously in its later entries, I think it gets better, starting really with 3. But that, I would say, give it a whirl if you can. It's worthwhile. I've enjoyed them. Where do you sit on Gears of War?
I think he explained why you should try them already. He was like, story's not that great, but the gameplay looks tight. It is tight. So therefore play it. I mean, I don't know what to say. I think the story in that, like you said, the story in that got good maybe, and maybe you find it better in 3, where I think Halo fell off after 3. So they sort of transferred in a weird way. Mm-hmm. But I will say that I feel that Gears feels dramatically different than Halo. Not that you were saying that they don't. What I'm saying is that they do feel dramatically different. And where Halo is a chess match against almost masterful groups of characters, what I found happened in Gears was I would enter a location in Gears of War 1, by the way, and it's done it since then. And by the time the battle was over, I was somehow facing the opposite way on the other side, fighting backwards, because they'd flank so often. Games do not flank. They don't pincer move. They don't, understand really how to funnel a person, except for Gears. In fact, I would say, while I like Halo's flexibility, I think Gears chess-like matches were phenomenal. Or splitting, if you do co-op and one person is in a completely different area than you, phenomenal. So, I mean, story-wise, guys, it's a shooter. I don't think Halo's story is amazing at all. I think Halo's story is pretty enjoyable, and I like some characters in it. Gears is the same way. I think he's right, though, about the art style, because Gears, they're roided up. They're roided up guys with guns with like motorbike exhausts for like silencers, right? It's like it's chainsaw chic. That's the way it looks. Where Halo is a sci-fi aesthetic. So I get it. Try him for sure, though, dude. You get to chainsaw people in half. Like, come the fuck on.
I was gonna say. Man. I mean, it's a good co-op game. I've been playing them in co-op, and that's the thing, man. Like co-op, you just get an extra point for anyone.
Probably one step above normal, right? You're not. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And I will say in Gears 3, they really introduce a lot of enemy variety, and on top of the flanking and stuff, you're really moving around a ton.
3D fucking guys above you, yeah.
It's 3's where it really takes off, in my opinion, but that's not to say 1 and 2 are bad.
Yeah.
Because 1's a lot of like city battles. 2, they tried to expand it more as you go into the tunnels and stuff, and then 3, it's just there's a lot of diversity here. So give it a try. Right back in. Brendan Scott, I don't know why I had a little accent there. Brendan Scott writes in,
Brendan, how are you doing?
Like my tongue rolled up. I hate that sometimes. Like, just the worst thing as a podcast host. My tongue rolls up and Brendan Scott. Hello, gentlemen. I'm writing in today because I take umbrage with something Matty said on the last episode. As someone who has purchased both the Series S and X, after playing both for about a month each, I think the S is as good of an option for a hardcore gamer as the X is. I think it's more dependent on whether you are looking for performance or graphics. I played all of Immortals on the Series S and didn't notice much of a difference when I booted it up on my Series X after the fact. Just my thoughts, but keep up the amazing work. Love defining Duke. Yeah, so I just want to make sure we want to enforce that this is not just us talking to you. You know, by all means, if I say something you disagree with, which a lot of people did disagree with my thoughts on the Series S, and I believe I was probably wrong on that, because I had originally said, I think the Series S is for not the type of gamer who would be listening to the show. And Karak, you had even said that you disagree when we were recording the episode, and I believe I was incorrect on that. A lot of people wrote in about their enjoyment of the Series S. No one was angry, which was nice, but a lot of people were like, I really like my Series S. So I think I'm going to change my tune on that a little bit, and I just want to make sure, we highlight that.
I think also I did investigate this after you and I talked and started looking in the S, and I saw Jedi and the huge improvement Jedi is on the S as of yesterday. And what I started to think was your description wasn't the best when you were describing it, but you were talking about things like performance, but you were also talking about storage, which can't be denied as a problem with the S. Like, it can't be denied. It is a problem.
You're always going to be cycling.
And it's a problem with the PS5 and the X. So if it's a problem with them and they're bigger, it's going to be a problem with the S. And so your reasoning, and then the idea that there's just a small step to get much better is there. But I think he probably thought it came across as dinging it, which is actually not really what it is. It's more like, hey, if money can be held a little bit, then you can get a great, the step up and not worry about the stuff you would worry with the S. But yeah, I mean, I get where he's coming from, because I just saw this Jedi and I was like, the S is coming out with some crazy improvements, ray tracing on Legion with the S, and you're just like, seriously? Like, that's fucking awesome. So yeah, I get where he's coming from, but I don't think it was as harsh as,
still something we want to spotlight. We want to make sure the dialogue's there.
Yeah. Don't argue with me, motherfuckers, though. If anybody's out there listening, if you write in, you're like, I take umbrage, I'll just be like, you're dumb. And we'll move on.
You're wrong because you disagree with
me. You're wrong.
Brendan Breland writes in with our fourth question. Hey, Matty and Karak, I've been loving the show so far. It's quite enjoyable for someone who hasn't played on an Xbox machine in many years, so I'm impressed. Thank you. We like to hear that.
Yeah.
However, I have to ask, what's your guys' favorite burger joint? And what is your go-to from that establishment? Just know that if it isn't Five Guys, Colin may have an issue with you both. Keep up the awesome audio/video entertainment, boys. I don't like Five Guys.
Fucking Five Guys is nap. Five Guys is the wet-ass pussy of fucking, burger joints, man. Nobody likes Five Guys. Come the fuck on, man.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what the hell that means. I'm gonna be real with you, but I got to say,
people will, though. They'll be listening and be like, I get it. It's just a sloppy, nasty hamburger, if that makes sense.
I was going to say, that's how I would describe it, because I remember SATs. I was 16 years old. This was my last Five Guys experience. 16 years old. It was 2:00 in the afternoon. I just got out of a 5-hour test. For all of you who taken SATs, one of the worst tests of all time. I get Five Guys. I remember unwrapping this tin foil, and it's literally, the burger was wet. It was fucking wet because it was soaking in oil and juice. It was disgusting. I ate it anyway because I didn't know better. I was 16. Right. I'm like, it's not going to kill me. I'm 16.
No, and your bowels at 16 are fucking pretty ironclad, right?
Yeah. So I was just like, screw it, man. But at 16, in high school, my diet was atrocious. If that put me off then, I could not fathom what it would do for me now. I really could.
Like a cat scratching its way through your bowels.
Yeah,
it's like what's your favorite, though? What do you like now? Who do you
I am a sandwich guy now. Yeah, I don't know if I have a burger joint, so to say. I am I have a lot of local sandwich places around me. I like to go to pizzeria and get a hero. I'm any type of thing with bread and stuff in the middle, I'm about. So I love a good burger, don't get me wrong, but I don't like many fast food joints in general nowadays, as I've cleaned up my diet and really gotten a hold of things. But Five Guys, man. I mean, if you're interested in Five Guys, I would suggest this to you, okay? Imagine if you take oil from your food, solidify it. Would you take a bite out of that? You wouldn't, probably, right? So,
for me, it'd be Wendy's. Wendy's does make an actual burger versus a lot of places and how they're made. And I would say overall, if I win, I'm like you, I choose other things. Burgers are easy for convenience. But I agree with you. Sandwiches are great because you can get all that, but maybe cleaner, or choose various hundreds of different breads if you get a sandwich, where a lot of times burgers are difficult. Like if you want to switch up your burger, a lot of times places just don't even do that. They're like, no, you're just getting this one type of bun, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Wendy's, if I'm going to do burgers, most likely.
All right. I'm sure we've drummed up a lot of controversy now. Anthony A. writes in, hey, Dukes and Lords, when do you foresee some of the more popular Bethesda games getting a Series X/S update? I'm guessing these will be announced after the acquisition is complete. I would love to get back into some Doom Eternal taking full advantage of the might of the Series X, or a Skyrim and Fallout 4 running at 60 FPS. Loving the show, and I'm hoping to eventually get a defining Duke Plus. You and I both. So what's interesting about this is there is a lot of hype for Xbox, and understandably so, but they sometimes, I don't want to say they under-deliver, but they say things are coming and they don't do them. One example is all the Final Fantasy games coming on Game Pass. That has not happened yet. And also, they showed Fallout 4 running at 60 FPS on, I want to say it was the Series X and S. And that was before the Series X and S had even launched. So they were promoting that big time. And they showed it in action just outside of the Commonwealth, by the way, which is the part where the game tends to run the worst. So it was kind of surprising to see that. I would say, Anthony, you're right on track. I think it's going to all come in after the acquisition is done, because it would be kind of a boost for Xbox to not just say we had these games on Game Pass, but they also run best on our systems. But that would just be my guess. Where do you sit on that? Do you think all these games are getting some updates, like a Dishonored update maybe? That would be kind of tight.
Microsoft is working on their version. I loathe to say this because people are going to come at me because I bitch about people using this term, but it's Microsoft's version of DLSS, which is artificial intelligence improving of older textures. Microsoft has their own division for it and have been working on it. So I could definitely see them, taking a couple of these titles, running it through that, improving some basic things. But I don't really want them to go back and revisit too many of these, unless it's small teams. Not because I want new stuff, they can do a sequel, but I mean, we've seen Skyrim 77 times. It's on a fridge. At some point, when are you the joke? We tease Skyrim, but are we the joke? Because we might be the joke in that.
I'm the joke.
Do you get what I mean? Because we're the ones
bought
who
it like 5 times. Yeah.
There you go. So it's like we're the joke. We tease, but it's like, dude, how do you do that? You're the one standing in the fire, then yelling everybody that the house is on fire. It's like you're the one standing in it. So I don't know. I love a lot of their games, and I would love to see Fallout 4 cleaned up a bit. Skyrim, I think, is old enough that I'm okay. Yeah, you know what though? I do think Microsoft, if I was Phil, dude, the first thing I would have done is I would have been like, let's get mods explosive. Let's do something behind the scenes that nobody expects. Like assert that from now on, every Bethesda / blah, blah, blah. Or maybe they hire Bethesda and say, not hire, but maybe they ask Bethesda to build the modding systems for all games going forward for Microsoft.
Yeah.
I think so you can put a mod in everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how hard it would be for something like Fallout 3 or New Vegas. That would break the web, because
that's what I was going to mention right before I said the mods was Fallout 3. But then it dawned on me, what if they said Fallout 3 with mods? Like,
dude.
Right?
Dude. All I'm saying is Microsoft is sitting on a pot of gold with the Fallout franchise.
You just said what I was going to... That is so fucking weird. I was going to say the same thing, but not with the Fallout. I was going to say they're sitting on a pot of gold with the amount of stuff they have now. It's actually analysis paralysis when you look at what Xbox has, and you're all, wait, what? They have everything. So I wonder what it's like. A friend
and I were talking last night, because they were just rumors. I don't know if it'll actually happen one day. But in an alternate universe, if Xbox gets Sega, right, which I don't really think they will. Right. You look at what Sega owns, like Sonic, Persona, Yakuza, like there's just a whole other corner of gaming that Sega really owns with all those games they publish. And if Xbox were to get them, I'm just like, Jesus, man, that might be a little too much. But it's just crazy to think about that. They're going to continue to expand.
Do they own Headhunter? Do you know? Do you know what Headhunter is?
Familiar.
Oh, no. Okay, I apologize. So Headhunter developer, Sega. So Headhunter was a game that went out against Metal Gear. It was made for the Dreamcast to go against Metal Gear because Metal Gear was Sony only. And there were 2 of them. And it was one of the first games where you could drive around on your motorbike around the world and all this stuff. And it was like a futuristic it was like futuristic Metal Gear on a motorbike. So you could drive around, go to different places, go through town. And I know there was a second one for the PS2, and they own that too. There's a lot of weird stuff Sega owns behind the scenes, like weird titles that could really pay off.
Yeah. All right, last question for our intro, and then we'll get into the news. Good morning, gents. The point of contention that's bothered me since Microsoft's purchase of ZeniMax that seems to have been ignored or I've been blind is the now present clash between Obsidian's Avowed and Bethesda's Elder Scrolls 6. Are we to assume that Elder Scrolls 6 is so far off and Avowed is much closer to release than we think that these will not cannibalize each other? Or is this just an all-around win-win for Microsoft? Can't help but wonder what Obsidian's feelings were about the purchase of ZeniMax and therefore Bethesda. Just wanted your thoughts. Cheers. So I like this question a lot because it is thinking on another level that's not really driven by hype. And I think the reality here is that if we really want to timeline this, we know that Grounded is a team of, it's probably expanded a little bit more, but it started off as a team of 13 people, completely separate within Obsidian. So it's really not taking away from everything. They also have a small team on the Outer Worlds DLC, which is why it's taking forever for both pieces of content that come out. The majority of that team has been working on Avowed, and the Outer Worlds had wrapped up, what was it? That was 2018 that had come out, I believe. Or was it 2019? I'm trying to remember.
For Outer Worlds was 2018, because then we skipped a year, then we had Switch, right? Isn't that how it went?
Yeah, no, it was actually, I don't know, because...
Or was it a year later for the Switch, and it was 2019?
I think the Outer Worlds was 2019, because I think that was around a year after Fallout 76.
Okay.
I got to double check this. 2019, yes, apologies. Because Fallout first had released at the same time as the Outer Worlds. That's how I remember that, because that was a conundrum for Bethesda. So, yeah, you got... I want to say 2022 would be a year for Avowed for us to at least see more. I know there's still some time, but I know Elder Scrolls 6 is pretty far off. And if these two do release close to each other, I really don't think they're going to cannibalize. Maybe on the sales chart, that could become an issue. But if you're saying like Avowed comes out 2023, and then Elder Scrolls 6 is a year later, I think people are going to be excited about that because it's more of a thing that they already are familiar with. If anything, it just probably benefits Bethesda a lot. But, it's hard to tell what Elder Scrolls 6 is truly going to be in the sense because, Bethesda held off for a whole generation, specifically because the idea they had for Elder Scrolls 6, Todd Howard literally went, we have to wait for technology. So whatever they're doing, I think is going to be bigger and crazier than maybe even what Avowed's doing, where it could separate itself in that manner.
Yeah, and you got to, obviously Microsoft, prior to the purchase, would have looked at all this. And so whatever they've looked at, they've decided that there's not an issue. I also don't, we have no clue what's going to happen. These companies getting together, but you look at Sony. Sony releases a fucking third-person action adventure game every goddamn 6 weeks, it feels like. And luckily, they've all been, fairly different. Ninjas and fucking neon dinosaurs. I said ninjas, but I meant I guess it would be more like Native American values, and then neon and dinosaurs in Horizon. Then you've got zombies and what was that game? Days Gone.
Days Gone. Yeah,
then you got Spider-Man. So you have all these. So they're not super close, but they are. You and I have even stated it does feel like their output is a bit not samey, but you know what I mean. Like there's something about
in my opinion,
it is in a weird way.
It really is. Like when you play them, you don't care because there's a quality and a personality there, but on paper, they all do look the same.
Yeah, so to me, I think it's okay if two games overlap. And like you said, I think
if
Starfield
anything, it's a good problem
eat up
for Xbox staff.
Of course, yeah. And what do you offer? I think, what do you think, real quick? Do you think Elder Scrolls is going to have some kind of multiplayer component? Or do you think they'll leave that to the Elder Scroll? Do you think they'll leave that to the Elder Scrolls Online and then just make this a huge single, maybe co-op?
I think co-op. I really do.
Okay.
I feel like if they had this insane, because Skyrim, a lot of people like to joke about it, we just were. Skyrim was groundbreaking when it came out. It really was. And I feel like if you could have that level of groundbreaking open world gameplay and then have that alongside a friend, I talk about what I view as next gen. For me, next gen is being able to accomplish ideas that normally would have drawbacks. right? So it's either you pick your co-op and you do some drawbacks, or you do your open world game and you do no co-op. And it's like, let's do both. Like, have your cake and eat it too. So for me, that would be kind of the idea. I feel like there's going to be some, I don't know if multiplayer, because multiplayer indicates like some type of PvP, like an all-out war. ESO has something like that where you go to like Cyrodiil and you really battle it out. But for me, I don't think that would be what they do. I think co-op, like just exploring their world with a friend. And I'm not talking 76 co-op, by the way, because 76 I thought was going to be the answer to the Fallout co-op people wanted. It was not. It's like an MMO in a lot of ways. I want them to do just like a self-contained world, no events and shit like that. Just a nice open world of quests. And yeah, so I think maybe they'll do that. But anyway, we got a lot more to talk about with Bethesda, so let's get into the news. Number one, and one of the biggest bombshells of the week, Bethesda's first major game announcement since the reveal of Xbox acquiring ZeniMax as a whole is here, and it is a big one. Machine Games, a Swedish studio founded in 2009 and best known for its work on the Wolfenstein franchise, will be leading the charge in collaboration with the recently rebranded Lucasfilm Games. Reports have already surfaced that this is a deal that was inked prior to the Xbox acquisition back in September of 2020. Bethesda has stated that Todd Howard will be serving as executive producer for this Indiana Jones project and that the game will tell an original story. More notably, Bethesda displayed a surprising level of transparency by saying it'll be some time before they have more to reveal, but they're very excited to share the news today. Machine Games has also noted that they are indeed hiring for the project. Some details that can be picked out of the teaser trailer for this Indiana Jones game are a plane ticket to Rome and a map of the Vatican, suggesting, you guessed it, that the game is likely to be set in Rome, Italy. So Alexander Barker writes in, hey guys, so Indiana Jones by Machine Games. Do we think it'll be exclusive, Game Pass day one, first person / third person? All I know is Machine Games is still fighting the good fight against them Nazis. P.S. Thanks for bringing some green on board to Last Stand Media. You are indeed welcome. So this was the one we got the most write-ins about. We literally posted the thread on Last Stand Media's Patreon. This news got announced. Questions flew in. People want to know, what does this mean for Xbox? I think day one Game Pass is a guarantee. But Karak, the money question here, is Indiana Jones by Machine Games exclusive to Microsoft platforms?
Well, you just said somebody stated that this deal was prior?
Yeah, it had been reported by... I want to say I saw a Game Informer.
Okay, because the word I got was not only it had not been prior, the reason why the trailer looked like such shit with the horrible animation when they picked up the hat was because they rushed to put the trailer together.
Really?
So we're at two odds of the data. If what you're saying is true, then I'm going to have to reverse what I've stated, because I stated there's absolutely no reason whatsoever for this to not be exclusive.
The only thing I do have in support of what I've said, not only is just people's reports, but that Lucasfilms stated that they've been talking to Ubisoft for about a year with their Star Wars game. So does that mean the same thing applies to Indiana Jones? I'm not sure, but that is, the talks have been ongoing for a while, it seems. So I would imagine this was happening for some time.
Yeah, so if that's true, then I would see no reason for it to not be open to all platforms. I will say that Disney does not choose that. One thing people don't realize is it depends on who shops what. If you're shopping for something, then like if you're Microsoft and you go shopping, you have to live with the stricture that Disney says and the structure. So if Disney says we want it multi-plat, well, that's one thing. But if they come to you, or if they're already working with Bethesda or there's agreements, then things can sort of work a different way. Normally the IP owner will not demand it be so the big IP owner, if you buy their IP, for example, MechWarrior or BattleTech, they don't have to. There's a reason why multiple IPs only come out on one system, PlayStation many times, because there is no demand from the major IP on that it's multi-plat. In fact, they'll be like, hey man, you're coming to us. Disney sounds different. So what I went on was that no, and that it was rushed, and that's why it looked the way it did, because if they had a long time to work on that trailer, wow, that was a horrible trailer. If not, then it'll be multi. So that's a good point. I think we'll just have to wait to get some clarity on if that's true.
For sure.
I will say, I find, and I'd like to know what your thoughts are to skew this just a tiny bit. If all this is true, or if it's not, it doesn't matter. The thing that is confusing to me is yesterday when they announced all the stuff, day before, sorry, they waited a day to do the Indiana Jones. They've waited 2 days now to discuss Star Wars when the 2 days prior they had announced the huge Lucas Games conglomeration. And I found that weird. It's like, why did we wait a day? Maybe they wanted both companies to have a free reign to like get their own shine.
Let it breathe. Yeah.
Which is cool. Because it was, to me, it made no sense when I saw Indy, let alone Star Wars today. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we have so much to talk about with this realm of news. And of course, like I said, I think it's day one Game Pass. We'll talk about exclusivity
for
in a
sure.
second.
I agree with you on that regardless. Yeah,
I think that's a guarantee, which is a win in its own right. Matthew Armelli also wrote in, hey, howdy, hey, boys. With the new Indiana Jones games under development at Machine Games, do you think there's any chance Bethesda has some kind of publishing deal with any other Disney IPs that could help explain the massive $7.5 billion Microsoft dropped to acquire them? Maybe EA burned up any goodwill they had left with Disney with those tragic Star Wars Battlefront launches, leaving Disney with an itch to seek out different partners. So, couple of things I wanted to point out about this. Number one is when the $7.5 billion price tag came out, it did seem a bit eye-popping. It still is eye-popping. But with an Indiana Jones game potentially being exclusive, I feel like that could explain the bigger price tag. I had thought of this, so I'm glad someone had written in about it. Thank you, Matthew, for your comment here. I do remember with Battlefront 2, when that game had launched and it had the most downvoted post on Reddit history, that there were, this was just reports, by the way, it was nothing confirmed, that Disney was relatively hands-off with gaming, but that they were not pleased with what happened with Microsoft and not Microsoft, sorry. They were not pleased with what happened with EA and the handling of their Star Wars IP. And so I think what happened was around that time, because we'll talk about this more with the Star Wars section of the news, is that pretty much for years they have been creating this Lucasfilm Games team to seek out development talent to ink these deals, to sort of take the Marvel approach. And so I think ultimately, yeah, maybe EA did lead to this happening here, as we'll highlight in our next bit of news. But when it comes to Machine Games working on a Indiana Jones game, I think this is a good fit. But what's interesting is the challenge this may be for them, right? We've only seen first-person shooters in the Wolfenstein franchise, and those are competent first-person shooters, fun to play. I thought two of them had good stories. I didn't like Old Blood or Young Blood that much, but I got to say, I really liked New Order, New Colossus. I thought those games were great, but I imagine Indiana Jones you'd want it to be third person, right? I mean, it'd be interesting to see it in first person, but I feel third person, Xbox was seeking out that Uncharted for so long. Remember when 2015, they bought the exclusive launch to Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
And so now 5-6 years later here, they've got their answer with the thing that inspired Uncharted. So do you think they just take the third person route here and Xbox tries to lock them up to sort of have their Uncharted?
Yeah, I don't see it being first person. I mean, it could be, but I don't see it. It doesn't make a lot of sense with indie being sort of the thing, sort of the major part of it. The anime, there's something about the cartoony way in which indie does stuff versus others. Even Tomb Raider's gotten a little dark with like the 50,000 death scenes that you could have in Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Oh my god,
which was like it was death. Even Camilla Luddington, who does the voice, was like, she was like, I'm either dying or having the best orgasm of my life. Like I can't tell. And then you have Uncharted, which sort of went homicide at the end, with all the gunplay and stuff. And I think with this one, the idea of being slightly more comedic, but that the golden novelty hue of like the romantic adventure that Indie's always had. Indie's never been super dark. And in fact, when it goes dark, that's why it matters more. When the guy's face is melted, it mattered in the first one because you were like, the rest of it's been like da 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 da. It's been cars and people rolling. Even Indy, he shot a dude, but for the most part, it's all defensive. So I'm just really excited for it overall, but I don't see it being first person. That just seems completely alien, to what the expectations would be.
Yeah, I agree. I think third person is the route. I think day one Game Pass is happening. On exclusives, I do think this is multi-plat. A lot of people had written in about Spider-Man PS4 and how Sony had managed to lock that up. Is this Xbox answer to that? I think a lot of people are always about the trading blows. Like, what is Sony going to do now that Xbox has acquired Bethesda, what is Sony going to do? I mean, Sony's already got, before all of this, Insomniac. Like, that's their win, right? And that's a huge win. So I think a lot of people always treat it as like trading blows, throwing back and forth here. I think, if anything, maybe Xbox goes, hey, this is cool for us. Like, we have a chance to get a Indiana Jones game, and they see the opportunity of maybe making their own Uncharted. But I don't think it's that, well, PlayStation got, Spider-Man, we've got to figure this out. But a lot of people think that maybe this will be exclusive because of that. But I think it's a little bit different with Sony owning Spider-Man. Whereas Indiana Jones is underneath Disney, Lucasfilms in general. And Xbox would have to just buy the rights outright for something like that. It'd be very interesting to see this end up being an Xbox exclusive. But one thing that's worth noting, and it could just be because Microsoft owns Bethesda at this point, or is in the process of becoming owners of them, is that PlayStation did not retweet the tweet involving this announcement here. And I don't know, writing on the wall kind of moment there for me.
Not only that, but so it is, we've talked about this. It's not like Phil's up at night going like, oh, you hit me with this, I'm going to hit you with that. It's like, there is that, of course, because they're competitors. But what Microsoft would have looked at is the cost. If the cost outweighs, if they're going to buy it, remember, these are the guys who paid for the GTA 4 expansions out of pocket. They paid for Rise, they paid for Titanfall. There is nothing that goes against Microsoft stating, we want all of indie. Nothing. The only thing that states that is the possibility of this deal being prior and Bethesda having some kind of. However, the fact that they didn't announce anything back then and announcing it now, then you look at it and you're like, okay, in that amount of time, has Microsoft, figured out a way to get around it? Microsoft would certainly have no issue paying to be exclusive. They just wouldn't at all. And especially when they found out, and when all of us found out how much money Sony was shopping right prior to them buying Bethesda, right prior to Starfield and them trying to buy exclusivity. There isn't necessarily always a 1-2, but I can tell you companies remember. I mean, I've worked with a CEO directly, and a year or two later, he would remember what a competitor had attempted to do. And it wasn't I'm going to punch back. It was like, well, if they are going to play it that way, I need to play it a certain way so I can still do good. So there is definitely the possibility of all this. The PlayStation not retweeting is actually sort of a big deal because they are on top of things. Jim Ryan didn't retweet it. So there's definitely, I don't know. There is, it's nebulous. All this shit's nebulous. It feels like we never know, right? It feels like
we're reading between the lines here a little bit, but I feel like the lack of a retweet it's quite symbolic, because usually, like, I'm looking at their Twitter account now, Hitman 3, we know that's coming to PlayStation. Cyber Shadow, this is a game from Yacht Club Games, looks fantastic, by the way, but they're like tweeting about that, which is
they're a retweet freak. That's PlayStation.
They tweet out anything that's coming to the PlayStation platform, really. So I don't know. I found it a little bit eyebrow raising that they had nothing to say about Indiana Jones, and so presumably that might be because Microsoft's going to step in and
part-time exclusivity, timed maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say this. I think right now, as it stands, they may either not know, or it's probably going to be multi-plat and could end up being exclusive, because the conversation with most Bethesda games was like a Wolfenstein 3, a Doom 3, Starfield. They've likely been working on a PlayStation version for years. And so to scrap that it may end up just being a complete waste, where you could just capitalize on something like that. Because even if, say, Microsoft says, all right, Starfield's multi-plat, even if it publishes on the PlayStation platform, they still get money for every sale. So it's not like they're losing out by it going to PlayStation. Whereas in this case here, this game's very, very early on. We know Wolfenstein 3 is coming first. So there's a chance that Microsoft could say, hey, before you even make a PlayStation version, how about you only make an Xbox version? You tailor everything to our system. I feel like that's the kind of opportunity they have here, where I think right now as it stands, it's more than likely multi-plat. But if Microsoft wants to pay, as I said with Ubisoft last week, then I think Machine Games and Lucasfilms will certainly play. So,
I mean, here's the thing too, Matty. I don't know why everybody thinks this is the way Microsoft will play if no other competitor in the world plays that way. Microsoft isn't going to be like, we're the only good guys in the gaming sphere and let our games be on everything. Sony doesn't, never has. And Microsoft's not going to magically be like, oh, all right, fuck, yeah, we're going to do it. They're not going to do it. They're not fucking idiots. So when it comes to these kind of things, they've spent money. Like I said, they bought the GTA expansions. They paid for those, and they waited years before those went anywhere else. So the idea that somehow everything's going to switch with Microsoft is wrong. It is wrong. They will not do that. They do lose out, though. You were saying they don't lose out. I think they do lose out in one place. It's not that they lose out money in the sale, but they lose out the possibility of a buyer or a person getting into their stream system if it's not exclusive. And I can tell you, if they were buying Tomb Raider and Titanfall prior, then now, when it's even bigger deal, you can bet your bottom dollar they're looking at the money and thinking, do we just buy out the exclusivity? Do we just say, let's fucking do this? Sony's done it. Microsoft has done it. Nintendo's done it, but the one thing none of them have done, and people need to fucking have a wake-up call, is they haven't said, our first-person shit's just going to be on everything. It's not done that way, guys. Like, 5 stages of grief. A lot of people are still in those first 2. And, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's
I don't
the thing.
know a way to say it.
We have to acknowledge one thing, and that's that we do live in a pretty PlayStation dominant conversation right now because they've been rolling and Xbox is getting back on their feet. So it makes sense. But I think because so many people are on the PlayStation platform, a lot of people are like, it's not happening, like denial. Right. And
man.
So
I mean,
I think, does it mean everything? No, but I think that the telltale sign will be Starfield. I think we'll learn what Xbox wants to do when Starfield, a new IP, comes around. If they're like, we're locking this shit up, it's ours, or they're like, you know what, we'll let this go multi-plat. From there, it can go any different direction. If it's exclusive, I'm expecting everything to be exclusive, but that's just where I sit.
I agree. Last thing, very short. Regardless of exclusivity, I can guarantee you some people need to remember that it will now be made for and working best on an Xbox system. That's the one thing people need to remember is it doesn't matter if it's a first party / second party, which these all are. Any of those games are going to be their primary platform will be performance on the Xbox / streaming situation. It will have nothing to do with Sony anymore, which is the opposite of all of the other games that you've usually seen. And I think that that's one thing people need to come to grips with. So they won't be taking advantage as much of the DualShock. What's it called? Sensitive shock, your finger thingy. They won't be taking, they won't be taking super advantage of that if you can't have a like for like on the Xbox. That's, you can guarantee that. That's just business.
Well, let's get into number 2 then. Continuing a week of monumental announcements, Lucasfilm Games sustained their momentum by revealing that Ubisoft Massive, another Swedish studio, funny enough, but this one best known for The Division, will be taking the helm on a brand new story-driven open-world adventure set in the Star Wars universe. In the blog post on Lucasfilm's website, they state that this is, quote, a new direction and era for Star Wars and Lucasfilm Gaming overall, as Lucasfilm Games is now opening the door to developers that want to come play in a galaxy far, far away, end quote. The post also mentions that they will be using the Snowdrop engine, the game engine that powered both the Division 1 and 2. The post also confirms that, quote, old friends are sticking around, end quote, stating that EA has multiple Star Wars games in development and the partnership between these two companies will continue, but it's safe to say that exclusivity with this company is done. Quote, this is really the culmination of years of preparing to come out and say, we're here, we've got a team of people, we're going to make a lot of great games, and here's some new things you weren't expecting from us to do that we're starting to do now, says Riley, end quote. Quote, and that's going to continue throughout the next year or so, where we're going to continue to announce projects that are more representative of the legacy of the old Lucasfilm games that we're now trying to live up to, end quote. Now you can hear the excitement in my voice. And
that's that's a shot. That's some shade. That's at least a little bit of shade thrown EA's way.
I'm super excited about that part, and I'll talk about why. Interestingly, this post also confirms that Todd Howard is the one who pitched the game and story concept for Indiana Jones underneath Machine Games. Presumably, we won't see much about Ubisoft's Star Wars game until 2023 when EA's exclusive deal expires. A deal that Jason Schreier reported on multiple occasions is one that current leaders at EA did not want to inherit, so this seems to be a best outcome for all parties. All right. So now we don't have to limit one section of the conversation. It's open season here, baby. So we got now Star Wars taking the chains off of EA, and it's free. It's a free IP now. Developers have been invited in to take up this Star Wars IP and work with Lucasfilm Games. So, Karak, to me, the most noteworthy quote here was that they are going to continue to announce projects that are more representative of the legacy of the old Lucasfilm Games that we're now trying to live up to. Karak, is KOTOR coming back, baby?
Oh.
Something's got to be happening in the Old Republic universe. I'm sorry. For those who are new to Karak and I don't shut the fuck up about Knights of the Old Republic. If you watch my channel, I do not shut up about this game. I talk about it weekly, at least. Like, it comes up some way, somehow, because I play it every year. It's my favorite game of all time. And it is, I think, the most neglected part of Star Wars. And so now they've opened the door. So, I mean, Karak, I think the best question for me to start this off with you, because I know you got a wild mind. What is your ideal collab between a studio and Star Wars? And then we'll talk, of course, about Ubisoft's game. But what would you want to see in a dream collab here? He ponders deeply, sifting through his brain and all the game development studios.
I don't want to go with the easy ones. So, like, I mean, in all honesty, man, we might be pretty close to it, because I think Ubisoft paying attention to what makes Star Wars great could be probably one of the best games ever made. I mean, they're pretty, so, like, I don't love all of their games, and I don't like the Ubisoft-ness of all of them, but they do put some serious fucking time in. Like, and some everything from their DLC to making sure the voice actors are better than we're accustomed to in most games, to like they take care of shit that a lot of companies don't. So I'm trying to think of somebody aside from Ubisoft. So I would say Massive is probably pretty high, especially because I thought Division 2 rocked gameplay wise. World wise, I was not as interested in Division 2, but gameplay wise, I had a great time.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I will say, yeah, I don't have an answer for that. Like, who's a combination of a developer and a game. But I will say that, like, I think we can all agree that something's going on with the Old Republic in the fact that they haven't visited yet correctly. They did just release their new novel, that the Light Jedi or whatever.
Oh, the High Republic layer, the Jedi.
Yeah,
I did buy that. I'm looking forward. I'm probably going to start tonight, actually.
And there were some really good reviews of some of the, just so you know, Disney authorized a couple changes in that book that are, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but basically what they did in that book is they authorized a couple of the Old Republic's force powers to be brought back into Star Wars, which they had originally refused. And in this book, there are not necessarily Bastilla's ability to battle meld stuff, but very close to that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just think something must be going on there that we haven't seen. I don't know if they're afraid of non-Luke, but God, man, we got to move on. Old Republic is fucking incredible. Like, it's unbelievable. I don't know of another thing. Imagine doing a Game of Thrones movie, but not about the important shit. That's how Star Wars feels to me. I love Luke and everything, but, like, that story's done. And we just keep regurgitating it out, and like dogs return into our vomit. It's like, let's move on, man. Let's rock and roll. You have a 10,000 years prior. That's the best stories probably in Star Wars.
Yeah, I agree. Assume. And the thing is it's only gotten recognition in like books/comics as well as games. And, there was a report last year, or within the last year and a half or so, at least, that Leita Kalogridis, who did Alita Battle Angel, and a couple other things, that she would be heading up some type of Old Republic show or movie. And then I remember Jason Schreier, he had, I think, reached out to me. He said, like, hey, if you have any questions about, anything, just shoot me an email. And so I fired one his way about KOTOR and its a remake, because there were reports for a while that BioWare Austin was doing a KOTOR remake and that it was put into stasis. And I do remember him telling me, and I made a whole video about this, by the way, so it's not like I'm breaking anything here. I made this video within the last year for sure, that he wasn't sure if EA was directly involved in whatever was happening with KOTOR next. And now that we've seen Lucasfilm's rebranding, right, this would make a lot more sense with where things are heading. So I think on the Old Republic front, it's pretty safe to assume something eventually will come. I don't know when, but I think it is a safe assumption. But for now, let's talk about what we do know, which is this Ubisoft open world, story driven game set in the Star Wars universe by the developers of The Division. Unlike you, I enjoyed The Division. I thought one was
no.
As.
You just said unlike me.
I said I'm like you.
I'm sorry. Oh, I misheard. I thought you said you're unlike me. God, I want to make sure that's clear. No, continue. I apologize.
I am like you. I enjoyed The Division. I thought 1 was okay, but I thought 2 was really fun. I thought that had some spectacular level design. I thought it had great shootouts. I mean, if you're going to take like a third person shooting Star Wars game and build it sort of like The Division 2, I would be about that. I'll be honest. What I think everyone's afraid of course, is kind of what you were hinting at, the Ubisoftness of the game, the familiarity of the template that they seem to kind of recycle and reuse for a lot of their open worlds. Like you and I both just reviewed 3 open world games this past fall. We both reviewed Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legion, and Immortals Phoenix Rising. And each of them did something a little bit different, but at the core, there was this similar open world template. And I think it really got exposed last year. Like, it was very obvious because I remember Watch Dogs Legion was first in line. I was like, man, this is good because of the AI, right? The AI and the amount of things that they could do with that game. And it's, plays anybody. It had like a cool piece to it, something that you could see in the future. I thought Assassin's Creed Valhalla was fantastic. It was pretty long, but I thought it respected my time in a strange way because it was much more quality there. And so the core there was progression, right? It was all about the settlement. And then with Immortals, it was almost the fantastical nature of it, and the hack and slash nature of it. Everything has a different quirk. So what I'm worried about with Star Wars is it's going to be, say, the similar open world structure that we're familiar with, but this time you have blaster pistols. So you don't want to have pretty much the Ubisoft template with like a Star Wars stamped on it, right? You want, I think, more. And so that's my only concern right here is I'm excited about the notion of other developers getting involved, because to answer my own question I asked you, if I were to make a pick, it would be Platinum Games in Star Wars. Like, to me, that's just like, boom. Like, I love Astral Chain.
But that would also tie you into a Jedi? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that would. But I feel like if anyone's going to do that Jedi, level of combat, Jedi, that would probably, them or FromSoft. Those would be 2 companies I would pick immediately. And so I feel like that's sort of written away. Like, that's got to happen at some point. Maybe not FromSoft, but I feel Platinum Games for a kind of beat 'em up hack and slash Star Wars game, that's got to happen at some point. But yeah, man, I mean, that's more so what's exciting to me is the prospect of this deal, how wide open it is, where we can go with this, and seeing Bethesda sort of involved actively with Indiana Jones, and of course having a wealth of their own studios. I do wonder what else they could do, right? Like, imagine Arcane doing something with the Star Wars IP, Bethesda Game Studios doing an open world game with the IP. Obviously they wouldn't, because they have Starfield. People would be like, fuck Starfield. let's get Star Wars in here. But there's so many studios we could list off. I know CD Projekt Red's lost a bit of their street cred, pardon the pun, with Cyberpunk, but I still thought that game was great and I enjoyed it a lot. And so I would love to see CD Projekt Red take a crack at Star Wars. Like, there's just so many good teams out there that can do really spectacular stuff. So seeing them take the Marvel approach, I think is very thrilling. Very thrilling indeed. All right, Karak. Moving out of the Lucasfilms department, let's talk a little bit about PC, because this is not only an Xbox. Oh, sorry. What's up? You're stretching it out.
So
watching Karak just put his thoughts together here. I think he's about to break up with me.
No, but I do want to say something that's just going to make everybody mad. But I think we do come to, because I started it. I said, the Ubisoftness. But as you were talking, I was like, you know what? Once you get about a fourth of the way into Skyrim feels like Ubisoft. It's always go here. Yeah, they're very much go here, go there. They're not like Ghost of Tsushima, let's say, with the wind blowing where you're looking at the world. It's always a map. I'm talking about the interface.
Imagine you use the Force to like feel your way through the universe.
So cool. That's actually exactly what I was going with is all these companies are making titles after some glorious successes and failures. And I think that the thing, and this is what I brought up in the video I did today on Star Wars, is that a lot of people remember the failures, but they don't remember a lot of the successes, and other developers do. So another developer at Ubisoft is sitting back, seeing Ghost, and I can guarantee you this happened. I know this happened, actually. where they saw Ghost of Tsushima and were like, oh, damn. When they saw like you can get, I absolutely 100% that factually happened. So you have these things where people take the good and the bad from these other games, including Ubisoft, who lost the premier driver of all the Assassin's Creed games and all the Far Cry games. He's gone. In fact, a couple leads are gone. What I meant by Skyrim and Witcher all feeling the same is once you dive into about a fourth of the game, maybe in the middle, they're all in a role that feels somewhat the same. Like go to a place, get a couple openings to stories and achieve those stories in the direction that you want. They all have a flavor that's differently, Norse and sort of dark with Skyrim and a little bit more, happy-go-lucky with like a Phoenix or something. But the reason why I was bringing it up is because I don't know how fair it'll be for us to all be like, oh, it's Ubisoft when it does come out, if it is somewhat that template, because we do let other companies get away with those templates.
I mean, in all fairness,
Days
Cyberpunk
Gone
has
is
Spider-Man.
Chasing. Yeah, Days got Cyberpunk. And another thing is like, look at Cyberpunk. It took 8 years and it came out and it was a buggy mess for a lot of people. Bugs, unfortunately, are RNG of real life, right? You never
I mean,
it really is. Your 99%, or mine in this case, was your 50% because I got way more bugs than you. Like,
yeah, it's weird because, not to go off track, but what's funny with Cyberpunk is before patches, my game, it was very noticeably buggy. They put a hot fix in the middle of the review process, and that's when I thought the game was like running at its best and it was less prominent that there were so many bugs. And then they added these other hot fixes in, and that's when my game started to fall apart. I was like, Jesus Christ.
I did hear a lot of people.
It's a really weird situation, man.
I'm just saying, I think that what I stated about us all worrying about it being Ubisofted is that a lot of games are, and we let them get away with it because their theme is different. And because Star Wars is Star Wars, I think a lot of people will probably look at this and be okay with it. As long as they make some quality of life.
I will add on there to support your mindset that Ubisoft did go through a lot of turnover. I know you mentioned people leaving, but there was a lot of issues, we'll just say, happening at their studio.
Yeah.
And so one of them was like, they turn down like a King Arthur game. They almost, they turned down Cassandra being the main character in Odyssey, even though in my opinion, she's like the fucking best character. So it was one of those things where those types of people are gone who kind of funneled creativity. So what's interesting about Ubisoft here is that we may see a different Ubisoft in the coming years.
Yeah, right.
Because a lot of people who are stagnating that creativity and not letting those new ideas flourish are gone. So, I don't want to write them off because I like their games. I should mention that. I don't want to sound like a hater. I'm pretty critical of them because they make it very odd. They don't hide their template too much is what I'm trying to say. You kind of know they're recycling a little bit. What developer doesn't? I get that.
Yeah, they've shaved the edges off of the roughness to a point to where sometimes their identity gets a bit lost is all.
Yeah, exactly. All right, number 3. Last year, Nvidia introduced their RTX 3000 series of GPUs to the PC gaming world, leading to buyouts across the board. Thank you, scalpers. To kick off 2021, Nvidia has announced that they are now bringing the RTX 3060, 70, and 80 to gaming laptops. Nvidia claims that the RTX 3060 laptops are 1.3 times more powerful than a PlayStation 5 and are up to 1 times faster than the previous RTX 2070 systems, capable of delivering 1440p 90 FPS gameplay. More than 70 gaming laptops will be available with the new RTX 3070 and RTX 3080 on January 26th, and RTX 3060 laptops will be available February 2nd. Prices start at $999 for the RTX 3060 models. RTX 3070 laptops start at $1,299, and RTX 3080 laptops will begin at a whopping $2,000. Nvidia claims that these laptops will deliver over 100 FPS at 1440p, justifying these eye-popping price tags. Nvidia has also stated that the latest generation of Max-Q laptops will deliver twice the performance of their last generation by utilizing a new Dynamic Boost 2.0 technology that uses AI to balance out the CPU and GPU as well as GPU memory in real time. Whisper Mode 2.0 was also introduced for the new series of laptops, where you'll be managing where you'll have AI managing fan speeds and game settings in order to stay at a particular sound level. So, Karak, you're more of our tech guy between the two of us. What do you make of the price tags here? What do you make of the new technology being put forward into laptops? This is all you. I'm probably going to be quiet during this section, so take it away.
And they do say the cost of the gaming laptop. Water, actually, real quick. Okay, so they say the cost of the gaming laptop, which actually isn't that bad. It's a laptop. It's an entire system. It can sound super expensive. Of course, scalpers are going to get a hold of this. I will say, Nvidia, they're just full of shit. Like they're so completely, utterly choking and gagging on their own shit. It surprises me. These are the guys who tried to sell you on ray tracing and something that we all love and enjoy as tech heads. But they sold us as, this is going to come. They didn't say anything really about the negatives that were going to be associated with it with performance. They just sort of tried to pretend it's like, oh, we have these magical special tensor cores. I think all these companies do this. I find it sort of embarrassing that they're comparing themselves to PS5 and then they launch at a price of $900, even though, again, like I stated, it was the entire PC. Looking at Nvidia, basically, I just stated they're full of shit. Oh, and then I've reiterated myself. But basically, stating we're equal to the PS5, at that price sounds a little weird if you think of it as just the video card. But he did state it was, these are laptops. The entire laptop will be that cost. So that's cool. AI being used for controlling stuff is awesome. You already have sensors that control these. What the AI will do, because people have asked what's different from a sensor. A sensor is reading a physical current moment, and one of the things about physical sensors on a PC is usually they'll have what's called basically a time threshold. So it'll check, let's say it'll pull 1,000 times, it'll change the fan rate every 3 seconds, and the reason why you do that is so you don't get with your fan. What AI will do, and what these guys are trying to say, is that AI will basically be able to look at your frame buffer, will basically be able to look at where your game is going and say, we don't need to go up because the very next frame is going to drop back down. So we'll just leave ourselves at this. Various things like that. Also, the ability to control your CPU and your GPU speeds via AI is great, unless the AI fucking hates you and then just decides to crank something. But I don't see it happening. AI is the new hotness, especially competitive AI for like image improvement that Microsoft's doing. But yeah, they're full of shit. The problem with AMD and Nvidia is these guys have a tendency to say, oh, it's faster than like a PS5, or it's 90 FPS. 90 FPS, by the way, is complete, utter, absolute bullshit, because one of the things Nvidia will not tell you is when they say 90 FPS at 1440p, they are not telling you the settings. My old fucking ATI graphics card before AMD became, or was, when they were ATI, could probably get a FPS on that if it was fucking like Tetris or Miss Pac-Man. They don't tell you the game, and they don't tell you the settings, and they purposely don't do that to obfuscate the actual thing that's going on, which is that for many of these, they've found, maybe they run these benchmarks on 10 games, 3 games have this, so they say double the power.
Gotcha.
And you have to look at an asterisk that down below says on fucking Tempest or something. And you're like, dude, who's fucking playing Tempest anymore? I just hate that shit. It's something you and I have talked about at random times, and somebody will tell me their PC runs a game at like 600 frames per second. I'm like, great, but what does it look like? Like, what settings are you running? And so this is great. It's more power. I think it screws over some buyers, and the scalpers are going to get in there. Bitcoin is big now. Again, Bitcoin's come up and down. But Bitcoin is definitely something that people are going to buy these for. And I think all that we come out of this is somehow AMD and Nvidia do need to figure out how to limit one card per household. Or there's got to be, they should use their AI that they've got running on these cards to figure out how the scalpers are getting away with it, because the scalpers do genuinely just make it worse on everybody, including the manufacturers. The manufacturers don't want them getting those as well, because a lot of people think, oh, the money, like that'll be, the money is what they get. What happens is a scalper will burn out a card. I don't know if you've heard of this, but a scalper, they're basically mining Bitcoin, burns out the card, then they sell it back on eBay. And then suddenly Asus has a bad rep for cards, when in real life, it's just this card's been used for Bitcoin and has run at its max. So yeah, good stuff. I mean, I want to see more power. So that's always going to be, by the way, have you heard of Game Bar, Matty? Game Bar?
How does that sound familiar?
Dude, check that tech out. So AMD basically introduced Game Bar, which allows for them to do what the consoles sort of already do, which is it allows for them to use the memory, the actual memory in the system to its utmost, including if your graphics card has 12 gigabytes to use more. It's a little bit like virtual memory, but it's real. And they were showing some improvements on FPS, valid improvements, by the way. Holy shit. It's a game changer. In fact, when you hear game changer, almost from all these guys, I'm like, fuck you. It's not a game changer. Like, that's not. Game Bar, guys, if you don't know what that is, go check it out. It is, and Nvidia is now authorizing it on the 30 series of cards. That is a game changer. It basically opens up your unused RAM to be used from now on, and it's using artificial intelligence and all kinds of different measurements to make sure it's not like the old way virtual RAM was used, where it really didn't help very much. They were showing some FPS improvements, having it on. There's been companies testing it, websites. I think Gamer Nexus may have already tested it. Primo. Because I don't know about you, I have 32 gigs of RAM. When my system's doing everything, Premiere, it's probably at 16.
Yeah.
You know, and I still have another 16 in the rears. So, yeah. Anyway,
it's perfect for people like us then.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Number 4, while this is an Xbox show, I think it's important that when a competition makes significant moves, it's that we want to discuss how this will impact the Xbox side of things, even if it's just optics. So PlayStation is officially, I put this in quotes, retired the Killzone website. Head to Killzone.com, and right now it'll redirect you to the PlayStation's main website with a message that reads, quote, "The official website for the Killzone franchise has retired. While this does not affect the online multiplayer modes, player statistics, or ranking data for Killzone Mercenary and Killzone Shadowfall, it is now no longer possible to create or manage clans in Killzone Shadowfall. We apologize for this inconvenience. Thank you to Killzone.com's many fans and visitors throughout the years for their enthusiasm and support." End quote. So, Karak, we were just talking a little bit about PlayStation, and we like their exclusives. We want to make that clear for those listening who are PlayStation fans. But there is, I don't want to say a sameness. Like, I love Horizon. I love Spider-Man. You know, I love Bloodborne. These all have us, and they all have their different quirks in gameplay and whatnot. But on paper, they're all third-person open games.
Days Gone is in that list. Yeah.
Days Gone is in there. Yeah, there's God of War, third person, semi-open. So there is a continuity here of the style of games that they are producing. Not specifically a template, because they all play vastly different.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've noticed a lot of PlayStations clamor for is more first-person shooters, because they have Resistance, they have Killzone lying dormant. Now we've seen them shut down the Killzone website. I'm of the mindset that because Horizon is very successful, this should not lead to the death of Killzone. Do you think that PlayStation might be coasting? Because what they're setting up for is a familiarity, I think, in their exclusives, because that's what worked for them, I guess, in the PlayStation 4 generation. Or Xbox, on the other hand, I mean, really most notably with the acquisition of Bethesda, but they have all types of games, from open world to RPGs to adventure games, puzzle games. I mean, they've got a whole list of them, first-person shooters, where PlayStation is starting to kind of knock down that diversity. And so we won't hang on this too long, because like I said, this is an Xbox PC show, but I wanted to kind of touch on this because I think it's a significant move for Sony, because they're sort of seemingly canning one of their franchises. What do you have any attachment to Killzone? Because for me, I like Mercenaries. I love my PS Vita. So Mercenaries it's a beautiful game too. If anyone has their Vita, that's a must own.
I mean, so Microsoft has not hit on third person, and they tried with Quantum Break and a couple others, where Sony hits all the time. Sony does not hit on first person, where Microsoft hits fairly often. So, and then racing, I would say, is split, though I think it would arguably be very difficult to say that Forza Horizon and Forza are not more consumer popular than GT. Like, even though I like GT, I think it's just Forza covers all the bases, regardless of which version you get. So I don't know if they're cutting it, and here's why. Sony's been burned about 65,000 times with having websites leak their data. It could be that they're closing it, and that they're closing their chapter out on this game. It could also be that Sony wants to work on a new one, and they want to make sure leaks are at an absolute zero. I don't know what the companies are working on, so I could be speaking out my ass, but I will say that I recently got an NDA that was quite interesting. I don't know if you got this. You can just agree or disagree, but the NDA stated something I've never seen before. It stated, under no circumstances upload anything anywhere until 1 day prior to this going live. We do not want leaks. And I was like, that is never been in an NDA. And I have no issue with that NDA. I think that's actually highly intelligent. Big people, Jim Sterling accidentally had a video go early. I've had a video go early. It happens.
Same. Yeah.
They were very clear. They were like, please do not, because this is the holidays. We do not want somebody, not being available to turn something off if you're somewhere else and your website uploads something. It could be that. It could be that too. I would hope that they don't ignore first person. Maybe they have another thing on the side, but I would hope they don't ignore it, because I think I wasn't in love with this last game. But graphically, wow.
Yeah.
Fucking holds the fuck up. Like it holds up to a PS5 game. So, what could they do, right? Like
I agree.
In that game world.
I think Killzone's great. I hope they continue that, but just something I wanted to make note of. Number 5, imagine a world where Zelda is a major Xbox exclusive. Well, Microsoft tried to make something like that happen. In a piece by Bloomberg documenting the creation of the original Xbox and the Duke, Kevin Bacchus, former director of third-party relations, lifted the curtain behind a deal in the making between these two gaming titans. Steve Ballmer, who was the ex-Microsoft CEO, made us go meet with Nintendo to see if they would consider being acquired. They just laughed their asses off. Like, imagine an hour of somebody just laughing at you. That's kind of how the meeting went. Now, in 2000, Xbox approached Nintendo with a more realistic offer, I would say, a joint venture between the two where Xbox built the hardware for Nintendo games to be played on. Quote, we actually had Nintendo in our building in January of 2000 to work through the details of a joint venture where we gave them all the technical specs of the Xbox, end quote, McBreen said. Quote, the pitch was their hardware stunk, and compared to PlayStation, it did. So the idea was, listen, you're much better at the games portion of it with Mario and all that stuff. Why don't you let us take care of the hardware? But it didn't work out, end quote. So just a fun little story there. And this was many years ago, and it will never happen again. But Microsoft did make the attempt to acquire Nintendo at one point and then work with them. So we see that kind of resurfacing a little bit as Microsoft puts some of their games on a Nintendo platform, which has been interesting to see. And obviously speculation still looms about if Game Pass will ever make its way there. But it's funny to see how far back this dates and how bold Microsoft was, really showing them balls off, saying, hey, we'll buy you.
Dude, this is one of the reasons why it speaks firmly to them buying exclusivity for any game that they, from Bethesda and
they
stuff like that.
tried to buy Nintendo.
They tried to buy Nintendo. I just don't, this is why people need, like I said, the degrees of grief. You need to get the fuck over it, because Microsoft back then was doing it. What you have now is, what's his name? The guy who runs Microsoft above Phil.
Satya Nadella.
Yeah, Nadella. He asked Phil to explain to him why they should keep Xbox. And Phil stated it took him a day or two to come up with an answer. He was like, I'm not just going to blather it. I'm going to come up with an answer. And whatever was discussed in that room is why you see Microsoft paying $7.8 billion for something. Guys, wake the fuck up. Microsoft is on the hunt that you probably do not even understand the amount of money going on. By the way, $7.8 billion is other companies' entire worth. People thought Bethesda was huge because of Skyrim, all that. They just they were like, you're ours. And I just don't think people even understand. And by the way, that didn't hit Microsoft's bottom line at all.
Yeah.
They were just like, that's a week of fucking Xbox Live, whatever. It wasn't, but you get my drift.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super important. Also, remember, they went back. The reason why they did that was also because Sony had fucked over Nintendo on the release of the PlayStation. And their idea was they were going to hinge on the hatred of Nintendo towards Sony, and found out that Nintendo just hated white people at the time. Not to be rude, they were racist. They admitted it. I mean, it's not that way anymore, but Sega of Japan has very openly been called out by Tom Kalinske, who put together the Genesis, for being really they could not understand America. They didn't get it. They were like, you need to be like us. Yeah. They both covered it very, very clearly. Again, not saying that's not that way anymore. Yeah.
Number 6. If you only read a brief headline propped up by GameSpot, you may have thought Halo Infinite has suffered yet another significant departure. Colby Payne, a campaign level / gameplay designer at 343 Industries, has exited after working with the team since April of 2009 for a new position of junior level designer at Gunfire Games, the developers of the Darksiders series. Colby took matters into his own hands, responding to GameSpot on Twitter, and he ratioed them in the process. His tweet said, "Guys, I was a contractor. My contract was ending, so I found a new job. This isn't news. Stop with your clickbait." When he was asked about why he didn't accept a full-time position, Colby stated, quote, "I didn't want a full-time because the cost of living in Seattle is too high and I'll never afford a house here. I've always wanted to live in Austin and purchase a nice home for my family, hence why I pursued Gunfire, and I absolutely love their games," end quote. So not to dive too much into his tweets there, but this is one I just wanted to highlight because the media really propped up like Infinite was getting another fucking significant departure, and a lot of replies were like, "Oh, here we go again." So shout out to Colby Payne for just stepping up and putting shit in order.
What's ratioed? That means you're higher than the other person in your followers, right?
It's I think it means pretty much that when the original tweet is posted, it had 1,000 likes. He responded and it got 5,000.
Yeah.
So he ratioed them.
Gotcha.
I love bringing Karak into the modern age here.
It's just because that shit doesn't fucking matter at all. And anybody who I just find that so goddamn stupid.
It just shows a lack of understanding
on my
media
part
on
for ratio.
No, not for ratioing, but it shows a lack of understanding
news,
in the media for a contractor's contract running out, and his personal reasons for leaving had nothing to do with the state of the game, but just that.
And it probably wasn't the people think who run. So I follow and am followed by the two mains at GameSpot. Oh man, I can't remember her name. I don't want to look it up because my tweet it'll open up all of my my browser. But those people are not the ones doing the tweets. And I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people forget that, and they assume it's the, two people who are sitting at home watching a fucking horror movie or whatever. Because I have seen that before, where like somebody will say something and people be attacking, like, "Dude, I was watching fucking Swamp Thing. What are you even bitching about?" And they're like, "Well, your Twitter." It's like, I don't run the Twitter, jackass. I'm not even connected to it.
Steaming along here, number 7, Respawn, arguably EA's best standing development team, founded a decade ago, I can't read today, which is best known for Titanfall, Apex Legends, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, has brought out a next-gen update to the latest title on this list. In a post on EA's site, Jedi Fallen Order will bump up the frame rate from 45 FPS to 60 FPS on Xbox Series S. On Series X, the frame rate has also been increased to 60 FPS on performance mode, with the addition of a dynamic resolution in the range of 1080p to 1440p. On the non-performance mode for Xbox Series X, post-processing has been increased to 4K and features a dynamic resolution range of 1512p to 2160p. Game Pass users can already find Jedi Fallen Order in their library if they want to take advantage of these upgrades on their new consoles. Now, Hugo Falco writes in with another Karak question here. "Hello, gentlemen. EA recently announced that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will receive a next-gen update. He mentions, of course, what the Series X will feature with a normal mode between 1512p to 2160p and a 1080p to 1440p performance mode, and the PS5 at 1200p. Since I'm not a tech person at all, could you explain exactly what that means? What are the pros and cons of each version, and if you think there will be a visible difference between Xbox and PS5 versions? Keep up the good work. The show is great. Thank you, Hugo." So, Karak, hate to put you on the spot again, man, but this is a question I feel like you would be best.
Can you read the two
answer.
P's for me?
So for let's see here, Series S, we don't have a certain level of P. For performance mode, on the Series X, it is 1080p to 1440p dynamic resolution.
Okay.
On the non-performance mode, this is their verbiage, by the way, non-performance mode for Series X, post-processing has been increased to 4K and features a dynamic resolution range of 1512p to 2160p.
Okay.
Meanwhile, PlayStation 5, 1200p.
No, you will definitely not notice the difference on that.
Yeah,
I thought it was. I thought it was huge. Dynamic resolution usually happens when you're the busiest on screen, which means for the most part you won't be, pausing it to count frames or to count resolution and pixels. And post processing in particular, that's interesting. They mentioned that because post processing means it's at the very end of the frame buffer. And some adjustments go on there. But I would say, overall not. In fact, the new thing I saw, Matty, was awesome, which is So Microsoft had a sharpening chip on the Xbox original. It failed because it would crush the black. We talked about this, I believe. So Killer Instinct and other games got their colors crushed, so it was turned off. It's not used by anybody. What you're seeing now is artificial intelligence come up where they basically take the resolution, they raise it up or down depending on your frame rate, but they also are now applying a sharpening filter on the low frame rate. And what the sharpening filter does is it doesn't make a white edge, which is what shitty sharpening filters do. They'll make a white edge around somebody, or you see the anti-aliasing. What this does is it uses artificial intelligence to make sure that those white edges are not sharpened, but everything else is. And dude, I'm excited for this because all it means is getting the squeezins from your consoles, getting the most out of your consoles without noticing. And that's what we should be excited for. It's a turbo versus a V8 that's spilling gas. You know, like they're both awesome and powerful, but really when you grow up, you realize like the turbo's just smarter. You know, it's just more efficient. And I love the variable, you know, all this stuff, except for frame rate. Should not be variable. 30, 60, whatever, lock that shit. That's my answer.
Right on. All right. Last bit of news, and then we'll move into the rest of our discussion. Xbox is shoring up on the localization side, one that has often been referred to as a weak spot outside of countries such as the United States or United Kingdom. In a recent update hitting the Xbox store, there is now a chart displaying what languages a game will support through subtitles, audio, and UI. Now, not all games support this yet, but it's safe to imagine over time they should, provided Xbox enforces this. So just wanted to put this out there for more of our global listeners. I think it's pretty important, but that is it for the news. Now, Karak, we get into our Game Pass pick of the week. I put Spiritfarer, and you put pretty good title. Man, you put a pretty damn good game there. As a Plague Tale: Innocence.
And I'm going to fully say I haven't played Spiritfarer yet, so I don't know if that's a better choice than mine.
No, I think they are both perfect games. Once again, I think they're, you know, what we're looking for with our Game Pass pick of the week is, you know, there are obvious ones like a Fable. Go try Fable. And, you know, maybe some weeks we will talk about those games. But when it comes to right now, I want to aim at games that maybe you wouldn't have given a chance to or that you'll scroll by. So that's why I picked Spiritfarer. This is a game that was announced at E3 2019. I was very excited for it, and I think it's really good.
Is this the running game where you're constantly running with somebody?
No, it's the side-scrolling, very beautiful hand-drawn art where you play as you are the Spiritfarer, and so you're doing missions for these spirits and sort of guiding them in their kind of last requests, and you're getting materials and you're building on this ship and you're housing them. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, on this boat, you're like building new gardens and you're managing materials. So, you know, like I said, there's gardens, there's houses for people, there's like general living quarters, kitchens, so there's cooking. And so you're doing all these quests for these spirits. And like I said, kind of ushering them into the other side once you've kind of answered their final needs. And
I'm going to let wonderful. My dog in. Continue.
Of course. And so it's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's not too long. The music is great. It is a little slow to start out the gate, I think, as it rolls out its mechanics, you know, because there's so many systems. But I really appreciate it. This was one I held off on for a while. I've been playing it actually since episode 0 on and off. And I got to say, I really like it. I would definitely recommend giving this a look. It's a smaller title that I think kind of got washed over because a lot of the indie hype, understandably so, by the way, honed in on Hades. Hades is fantastic, but I think Hades really was so good and so popular, it kind of sucked the air out of the room for the rest of the indie devs. So Spiritfarer was one that totally got left to the wayside, and I hope that more people give it a shot. So I give my unapologetic praise to Spiritfarer. It is a really, really neat title, and I think people will like it. It's calm, it's peaceful too. There's not a lot of combat or anything going on. It's side-scrolling collectathons and building stuff and managing your boat, and it's nice that way. And you'll go onto a map and you'll kind of pick locations around the world that you want to go to, and you can fish in the meantime, or you can collect like little spirits, which is kind of the game's currency, and spend it on stuff. And I don't know, it's simple yet it's effective. So give Spiritfarer a look. Plague Tale: Innocence, however, one of the more underrated titles to release in the last generation. That's for damn sure.
Have you bought Spiritfarer on the PC, or did you buy that on the console?
I got it through Game Pass console.
Game Pass console. Okay, I'll check it out today.
It's worth a look.
Plague Tale Innocence, awesome. I will say, Matty, have you ever, when you're like in New York, you're, I don't know, whatever you're doing in New York, breakdancing on the streets, whatever you do. Have you ever noticed how like asphalt in the morning steams or when they're repairing?
Yeah.
So I walk outside and my dog, my Great Dane, has left a dump that's probably the size of my head. And I look at it and it's steaming. It's like steaming. Like it looks like a dinosaur dump in Jurassic Park where like Goldblum looks at it and is like, that's a lot of shit. Anyway, so
no,
just
that
so
reminds me, hold on, because you're talking about steaming. I remember it was freezing outside and I'm walking Revan. Revan's my puppy for those who don't know. He drops a load, right? He takes a dump. And when I picked it up with the bag, I invert the bag and it just steams up.
Oh,
yeah. I was just like,
yeah.
It's just, I was like, yo, you're gross. You're cute. Dude, you're gross.
Dogs are, they've trained us well. You clean up his poop. You feed him. You play with him when he wants. There's nothing he does for, well, admittedly, I'm just joking. I love dogs. They do a lot for us. But anyway, I apologize to anybody there, but a big, giant Great Dane Duke. I was like, what am I noticing? By the way, Duke, defining the Duke, I just defined the poop. So
there we go.
So
that took me a second.
Do you now realize it? Yeah, people listening probably don't know the slang, but Duke is slang for poo-poo. So with Plague Tale Innocence, if people don't know, wow, how are we going to describe this one? It is a not even open world or open location. It's open location. Wow. I'm drawing a blank on how you would describe.
You play as weakness is almost the gameplay component that drives the game. You're not like a badass. You have like a slingshot, so you're throwing rocks at soldiers or
using a lantern or a light to get rats to eat people. Because it's all
a lot about
plague.
manipulating your environment because you are weak. You're a little girl protecting your brother.
Maybe
Hugo.
Hellblade? Would Hellblade be a close equivalent? A little less combat-y than Hellblade?
Less Hellblade without combat. It's got that endearing story. It's pretty straightforward exploration, if that. But yeah, Plague Tale Innocence. I think it's one of the best directed games ever.
Dude, like, it's so good.
It is, and the reason I say that, I don't want to sound hyperbole because I don't know if it's a game that'll blow everyone's socks off. But the reason I say it's best directed is because like every moment matters. And it doesn't overstay its welcome. Once you're done, you're done. So it's a perfect Game Pass game. That's why when I reviewed it, I was like, I love this game. But like once you beat it, it kind of challenged me as a reviewer because I was like, it's over. And I'm like, was that good enough to be like, go spend $50 on this for 8 hours versus, getting some replayability somewhere? But it is excellent. I'm with you on that. That is, it's so hard to describe though.
It is. It is. But I would tell anybody if if this is called Game Pass for a reason, this section. So this is about Game Pass. And I'm assuming now it's $14 purchasable, probably. But if you've got an Xbox and you're going to purchase it anyway, you might as well just do the Game Pass version. And it may only be 8 or 10 hours, but it is one of the most solid ass 8 or 10 hours I've ever played. And played and talked about and thought about. It's like Life is Strange, where I didn't expect to like it because of whatever. And like you said, weakness, protecting your little brother, family's weakness, a cool bad guy that's introduced, which you don't really like. It's not leading you that way right away. There's just a lot of parts.
Yeah,
very cool
it's a lot of moving parts, but give that a download, ladies and gentlemen, and definitely write in for some of our suggestions if you give them a shot. I'd love to hear what you think.
Oh yeah, for sure. I didn't think about that.
Time to fly through our PC deals of the week, and then we have a little new segment based off your feedback. Number 1, Newegg and Amazon are distributing PCs boasting the 3080 Ti for cheaper than usual. Amazon has listed a pre-built CyberPower PC with an AMD Ryzen 7 3800X, a 3080 Ti, and 16 gigabytes of RAM for $1,300. Newegg is offering a slightly different build featuring a Ryzen 7 3rd Gen 3700X 3.60 gigahertz. Per core, 3080 Ti, 16 gigabytes of RAM, but it has a 512 gigabyte SSD for $1,500. So if you're looking for a pre-built, these are some pretty solid options at, I'd say, decent prices. Number 2, because we want to focus on monitors as well here. Samsung CRG5 Series 2700 LED curved monitor with G-Sync has had a $70 drop off in price at Best Buy and is now going for $329. For reference, I'm an idiot and spent like $500 on a monitor. And so it's about the same size. And so this is a good deal. It's a good deal in my opinion. Number 3, Karak and I can really speak to the quality of these.
Yes, we can. I just saw it.
Rocat Kane 120 AIMO gaming mouse is currently 42% off on its home website. Instead of $70, you can now get the mouse for $40. And their Vulcan 122 AIMO mechanical gaming keyboard is on sale for an 18% discount, dropping from $160 to $130. Now, in all transparency, for some reason, I was sent this by the developers of Mafia, Hangar 13. They sent us like kind of a care package, and in it was this keyboard and this mouse. And so, full disclosure here, we got them for free, but they are fucking legit. And I would pay this price hand over fist for them.
They're so legit. I could show you. I can grab my video. My wife's got one because it's so fucking good. She tried it and she's like, "What the fuck? This is an amazing keyboard." And I was like, "Let's just get another one." Yeah, they're incredible keyboards.
So good. So highly recommend looking at that. I really like the mouse, the feel of it. It's very lightweight. So give that a look. It doesn't have the number pounds on the side and stuff. So if you're like an MMO player, might struggle there. And, we just want to make sure this is also a tech section. I wanted to experiment with what the offerings are here. So I found a pretty good TV deal. A Vizio 70-inch 4K UHD LED smart TV has had a $188 drop in price, leaving it at $588 over on Walmart. So for 70 inches, pretty decent price. All right. Our new section here is the backwards compatibility pick of the week. A lot of you sounded off with feedback saying how you really liked the idea. You thought it was an important part of the Xbox ecosystem. And so we will also, just like with Game Pass Pick of the Week, spotlight something that you can throw into your Xbox and it'll work just fine. Now, I did include a write-in from all of you here. This one comes from Traylon saying, "What's up, gang? I'm curious, is Microsoft done bringing more games to backwards compatibility? They left out one of the best 360 games in Max Payne 3 and would love to be able to play it on my Series X someday instead of having to hook up my 360. Congrats on a new podcast in addition to the team. Thank you." So I looked up a little bit of information on this because I was curious as well, because it's been a while. And Jason Ronald, the Xbox Director of Program Management, said in October of 2020, speaking to Game Informer, and this was really the last notable quote we've had about backwards compatibility. He said, quote, "It's definitely something that we're looking into, and I'll never say never, but I will also say some of these games were designed for the idea of, or were designed before the idea of generational compatibility that came into play. So in some cases, we've run into some technical challenges, and in some cases, there's licensing issues and whatnot. So the teams are definitely looking into it. I can't commit to anything here, but it's definitely something top of the mind for us and something that we are investigating." So that was October 2020. Bit of lip service there, but they haven't said no. So it seems like there is a chance more backwards compatible titles will be added to Xbox. I would love to see that. I think it's one of the best offerings there. It's a foot up on your competitor for sure. They don't have a good backwards compatibility offering at all, and I hope they continue to expand this. So for our first backwards compatible pick of the week on the Xbox Series of Systems, I went with Ninja Gaiden 2. And I got to say, man, I went back to this game, downloaded it off of Game Pass. This is available on Game Pass. And these games are great.
They are.
This is before Neo. So Neo kind of takes what Ninja Gaiden did right and puts it into Souls-like. And so it adds that difficulty on top of the flashy combat and all the different abilities you get. But fuck, Ninja Gaiden is so fun, man. Like the animations, the dismemberment, it's wild. Now, there was a rumor that there is a remastered trilogy. It was caught on the ratings board in, I think, South Korea. So that may be coming eventually. So if you're looking to get into the whole series, I think you can just kind of wait that out. But that would be my pick. I adore Ninja Gaiden 2. I played it on my Vita, PS3. I played it on my 360, my Xbox Series X. Like I adore this game. I played it so much. But Karak, your pick is even more interesting.
Yeah, Beyond Good and Evil HD. Beyond Good and Evil is one of the best games I think probably ever made. The control scheme's not great now. You know how it is. You just talked about it with Jet Force Gemini or whatever, where you went back and had to adjust the controls to today's controls. It's got some, if I remember right, HD's got the same issue as the original. I think it either reverses or doesn't allow for the reversing of your up and down. It does something that's a little opposite. Feels a little cumbersome. But Beyond Good and Evil, is one of the most fantastic, like, heartfelt games I've ever played, and I just don't care about heartfelt stuff. So the idea that it's stuck with me forever, like the music, the characters,
I've never played it.
It's just incredible. Like it's basically, to me, a lot of the Munch's Odyssey thing I like, but with characters that are a little bit more not comparable. What's the term? A little bit more identifiable.
Maybe?
Identifiable. And then with a 3D combat system. And this world that is just everywhere you go, you're like, there can't be more to this world. And there's more. And you're like, we can't be going, here. And then you go there and you're like, dude, does this world get like it's one of the reasons why Beyond Good and Evil 2 is so interesting to me from Ubisoft and why I follow it so closely, because I just could not tell you how special 1 is. It's just,
I'll have to give it a look. Because that's one that I've never played before. I wasn't even aware there was like an HD remaster, so I could download that on like a Series X and play that.
Yeah, it's Series X. I did check today. It was a little hard because Microsoft's website is down. But I did, or at least it was down right when I was searching, and I was getting weird jargon, but I did look to verify that it stated it was a backwards compatible title and available.
Of course, for the segment, But
it was difficult to find that because it's been so long since I had revisited it, and it was there, and I was like, oh, that's the one. So I do know, I think it said Game Pass PC as well when I checked. That would be something somebody needs to go behind me and check, because there was an issue with the website. But just absolutely incredible game.
I'll definitely be giving that one a look when I got a little more time and I've finished my Gears marathon. All right. As always, we like to wrap up the show with 5 questions from all of you. You can write in at patreon.com/laststandmedia if you want to go ahead and be a part of the show. Zach Yearwood writes in, hey guys, Matty, you seem so, he put 4 O's there, so sure that Starfield will release this year. Yet I believe there are some additional points to consider with Xbox finalizing the acquisition. 1, studios like inXile and Double Fine have each had their projects, Wasteland 3 and Psychonauts 2, delayed after their respective acquisitions. This was done to not only improve the quality of the titles, but to add content as well. I imagine that BGS will also do this to add polish and optimizations for the Series X and S releases. Number 2, while it is beneficial for smaller titles to release next to bigger projects, Starfield launching around Halo Infinite could split the monthly active users and pull people away from each other. Number 3, finally, Ghostwire Tokyo was given an October release at CES, and a Starfield release around this time would kill Tango Gameworks. Karak, what do you... I don't like this. I don't like that someone's challenging me on Starfield and my predictions for Starfield.
Well,
not a fan of that. I got to check something about Tokyo Ghostwire or Ghostwire Tokyo, because I'm pretty sure I saw 2022 for that.
So I will say, number 1, BGS will do this to add polish and optimizations. That would be, all things being equal, not a zero-sum game. That would indicate that they did not do polish and optimizations prior, which would be really weird. They should already be doing polish and optimizations. So the additional ones for the Xbox Series S and X would be even more odd unless we do discuss that it's exclusive for them and they're making specific changes. So 1 doesn't really make a lot of sense in that way. 2, well, beneficial for smaller titles. That makes sense. Not, not wanting to eat up though Starfield and Halo are absolutely opposite ends of the spectrum. I could definitely see somebody thinking that. Sony has shown that a month-for-month release absolutely works, and you still sell gangbusters. So I don't know. We all agree with you, I think, but I don't know if the world agrees with you.
Here's the kicker, Zach. You forgot something. You've left yourself wide open.
Okay, Zach.
Ghostwire Tokyo is fucking PlayStation exclusive. If I'm Xbox, I'm like, who cares when Ghostwire Tokyo is releasing, man? True. I mean, let's be honest. No, but this is good feedback. It's definitely something worth considering that studios have delayed their releases.
Wasteland 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Remember,
Wasteland 3 literally would not have had all the voice acting it had if Xbox did not acquire
I don't know anything about Psychonauts. That would be up to you, Matty. I don't know anything about Psychonauts being added to.
That game's been delayed multiple times. So yeah, I think that game's just kind of in, not trouble now, but I think it was in trouble for some time leading into that acquisition. And so I wouldn't attest that to really the acquisition personally. So I don't know. Zach, I think your points are null. Infinite is not going to impact Starfield. Ghostwire Tokyo, PlayStation exclusive, and if it releases in October, Bethesda Game Studios likes to do their launches in November. That's wide open. And if I'm Xbox, you want to have 2 big exclusives come out in a month. Like, that's unheard of for them right now to have like a Halo Infinite and a Starfield in the same month. Like, I think people would be excited, especially because if you're in that ecosystem of PC and Xbox, you got Game Pass, you got both of them. You don't got to pay $120.
They did bizarre BioWare and Bungie when they did the Halo, Mass Effect, and the racing game. I can't remember what it was. They've had a 3-month period. That was when Shane was in charge of Microsoft Games prior to Phil. And it's not unheard of for them to do game after game after game.
Yeah.
It's not really.
I think we're just not used to it.
So. Yeah. True.
Thank you for writing in, Zach, though.
Yeah.
All fun and jokes here. James Walker writes in, greetings, gents. Loving the show. You both are fantastic at hamming it up. I like the little callback there to the Ham Radio podcast. Bad puns aside, this past gen, I switched from a 360 to PS4, but I dearly love both. My question is, even with the return of Fable, I feel that Xbox is sorely lacking in mid to high tier RPGs. Gone are the days of Lost Odyssey, Blue Dragon, etc. What do you do, or rather, who could you see filling this void in the Xbox lineup? Thanks for all the entertainment you three provide. Peace. All right. So, see, I think they got the right people in place. They just need to wait. You know, you've got Obsidian and Exile and Bethesda. You've got some of the more prominent RPG developers. I think you just got to wait. Because, like, back then, that's the thing I think Xbox was missing with Xbox One. They've got a lot of talent, but when you look at the 360, as James had mentioned, you know, you had your Lost Odyssey, your Blue Dragon, you had Operation Darkness, another JRPG, you had Infinite Undiscovery. You know, there were these kind of surprising exclusives sitting there. And then with the original Xbox, you had BioWare for sure, who was just churning them out amongst many others. And so with the Xbox One, you saw that kind of step away. Now with this next generation of the Series X and S, we've got Obsidian, In Exile, and Bethesda. I think you really just have to wait, James. So I don't think they have to do anything to fill a void. They are filling it. They're in the process of filling it. They have the talent to fill that up. Where do you stand on that?
Just okay. To be real, if all that shit mattered, Microsoft would be number one. They're not. So all those games that they did have didn't really pay off in the end. At least to the current people who are running Microsoft. They weren't there. Phil wasn't even in charge. Those games came out. They did well probably, but we don't know how well. To a Microsoft now, they're not going to look back and go, remember the days when we didn't sell more consoles than everybody else, but we had these RPGs some people like that's not even a sentence that comes out of somebody's mouth. Currently, third party Greed Falls, Vampires, those are third party non-exclusive titles that fills these gaps that he's talking about. What else he's talking about are games that are not super popular right now, which are like a Lost Odyssey and a Blue Dragon just aren't the sellers they used to be. It would be the same way as saying Microsoft needs to release with a fucking fighter. It's not the way it used to be.
Hey, they did. They had Killer Instinct.
I wish, yeah. I wish that was like what was going to happen, and we would have seen that here with these new systems, but we didn't. So, I mean, I get what he's saying, but I think third party has stepped up. I think third party has stepped up, and the ability of third parties have stepped up so that a Piranha Bytes can do a game, and an Elix can come out, and a Surge 2 can come out. That's and all these things. It doesn't require the platform holder be exclusive, or the game be exclusive. Yeah. All right. Lost Odyssey was good though, by the way.
Lost Odyssey was great, and we also had someone write in. Kane Taylor wrote in asking about, pretty much in a long written comment, he wants to be sold on Lost Odyssey, given the fact that I've played it recently. Says he also says he became a patron
to support this show. Thanks. We don't see that, though. We don't see any of that. You need to come to our patrons.
Pay us.
Colin will be like, he's gone. Anyway, go ahead. What were you saying? So he wants you to answer, yeah, sell us, Matty.
On Lost Odyssey? All right. So the way I look at it is if you're looking for Final Fantasy, but a little more, I'd say almost grounded.
Okay.
You know, I would say that's what Lost Odyssey is. It comes from some of the original minds behind Final Fantasy anyway. The music in this game is fantastic, which I think is very important for this type of style of game. He mentions in his comment, he says, if I'm not mistaken, it had some strange level cap restrictions. I don't think it's the restrictions you're thinking of. It does have grinding to some extent. You do have to grind a little bit at times. But the story it's really well done, honestly. Like, I was very surprised. It's emotional. You play as Eternals, so you have the ability to live through multiple eras of time. If you actually, it doesn't matter if you download it or buy it. You just put the disc in, and you'll have access to the DLC called The 1,000 Years of Dreams. Yeah. So what will happen is, as you go through certain parts of the game, Kime will have his memory start to come back because he's lost it. And it'll be throwbacks to like 500 years ago, where he was traveling with a tribe that just followed the direction that the wind blew, and people he's encountered. And it kind of brings to life this very broad universe and everything all these characters in the party have seen. And so it's a very fascinating concept, and what being an Eternal means, where Kime looks at his grandkids who are just normal humans, and he's like, man, like, I'm going to outlive them.
Yeah, right.
And it's kind of gut-wrenching in that way. So there's a lot of emotional punch, which I think is surprising for a JRPG. It's well-paced. It took me about 50 hours to beat, which I think on JRPGs of that time frame is really good. Normally, they're really holding you down for hours and hours. And it definitely is the type of game where we talked about Pyre doing this, where it's like a game within a game. Once you get your ship and you can explore the whole open map, it really takes on a new form. There's so much more to do and see and explore and unlock. And so it's got that Final Fantasy DNA, but I really like the combat.
It's fucking
graphically
for its time.
It is aged really well there.
Yeah,
really well. I almost forgot about that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it won't feel old. That's the thing I liked about it most, and I noted in my video on it. It will not feel old, and that's huge. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
All right, 3 questions left, and then we're out of here. Peter Sismigu, I think that's how you say your name. I apologize. Hello, Carmatty. In order for us to get to know you two a little bit better.
I like it. Okay.
My question is simple. If you could only play one game for the rest of your life, which game would it be? The only rule is that the game needs to be playable on any Xbox platform. You could even risk it and choose a game that hasn't appeared yet, like a Halo Infinte or what have you, at your own peril. And for some reason, he writes after this, Matty, I like you a lot, but Karak remains my one true love. So he just has he's like, he's just like, how do I kick Matt in the nuts here? Oh, this is,
The other guy said he was banging to you, though, talking. Wasn't he saying, or was that to us?
He's just talking to our show. Yeah, he was just talking to our show.
What can I say, man? What can I say? Sometimes that fucking, it's like I'm like a Japanese idol,
Yeah, right?
What do we, one game?
One game on any Xbox platform. I think our selection is quite easy here. I'm going to go with KOTOR, for those who don't know. I will take the dangerous route and run through a 20-hour game for the rest of my life.
Oh, my God, no way. I would say...
I'm not going to be like, Halo Combat Evolved or Halo 2.
Right. I would say GTA 4. No, wait, 360? GTA 5 was on 360, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I would say GTA because it's just, there's so many, the game is so multi-leveled, like from the characters talking to weird little things you can see on the street. I mean, that would probably hold my interest more than most.
You're thinking too logically. Come on.
Not thinking with my heart.
You're using your head too much.
It's true.
Tyler Bello writes in, often people talk about the Nintendo bump and often the Sony bump as well. In your opinions, Recore and Quantum Break, do they hold up? Are they as much of a thud as people seem to think they were? Or is this an example of them not getting the Sony or Nintendo bump? Certainly not Recore.
Certainly not Recore. You and I fucking bro merged on Recore, I believe, behind the scenes, where we're like, oh no. Oh no.
That is a game that, no, that's just not a great game.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And Quantum Break, I liked the mini stories. You didn't, right? I liked the TV show. I can't remember.
No, I did. I did like that.
So the TV show was pretty cool, and I think that it was just mediocre as a game.
Yeah, I liked Quantum Break. I sit in the camp of people who like it. Do I unapologetically ask you to download it? No, it's a huge download.
But you enjoyed your time with it.
but I liked it. Yeah, I did like it. I got to say, it was a lot of fun. It's pretty sad. I've played this, I think, twice, and I have not played Control yet. But,
oh, dude,
here I am hosting the Xbox show.
Dude, that's what the people should. Man, that's I won't continue on it. But you should play.
I know. I do need to play it. And that's on Game Pass, so I have no excuse. Control's going to be a game I play this year for sure. But yeah, I really like Quantum Break. I don't know if it has anything to do with bumps or thuds.
Control's on Game Pass?
Yeah, it is.
The fuck?
I thought you were coughing because I said again I like Quantum Break. You were like,
no.
Jesus, no.
Sorry, I couldn't. It surprised me. I guess I had forgotten that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was added recently.
Wow,
but it's there. Last question, really more so a statement, comes in from Anthony J. Sanchez. Hey, K&M. Just a thought regarding Microsoft's rewards. Is it just me, or is it the best rewards program in the industry? I started the grind in late 2019 and have accumulated over 250,000 lifetime points, which is equivalent to over 250 Microsoft dollars. I've bought multiple controllers using this method and will use my next 200,000 to buy an SSD hard drive. I was just curious on both of your thoughts and would like listeners of this podcast to be well informed on how to recycle their time playing back into more Xbox fun. Thanks, as always. Yeah, so one of the things we had a lot of write-ins about in week 1 was about the achievement system and, should it evolve? And I think Microsoft's reward program, with Game Pass being connected to it and the daily quests and the weekly quests and whatnot that it has, is kind of that, because you actually can get more months of Game Pass or a new controller or an SSD. It does require time and investment, but if you're playing on the Xbox or Microsoft ecosystem, it's one of those like, why not? Because for completing quests, you gain points, and even if you're not going to spend them right away and it takes a while to accumulate them, if you're playing games, you should just be a part of this. So we wanted to put that out there. I don't know. Do you use the Microsoft Rewards program at all?
No, but I use the Ubisoft one, and so it sounds equivalent, except Ubisoft's is more in-game. And I loved that we were able to play Valhalla, and I was able to unlock a skin or two because of my prior time with another game. I think that
I do that
is
all
awesome
the time when I review their games. It's so funny.
And the great thing about that, by the way, also, because people might be like, well, that's achievements. It may be, but I don't have to track anything about Ubisoft points. I don't even track anything about Ubisoft points. I don't have to.
It's just there.
I don't have to hold 100 swords. It's just there. So if Microsoft does that, I'm absolutely sure I have a bunch. I remember in the past doing something with it, like getting a card, or it might have been like
you can get like gift cards and shit.
Yeah, I think I did that and gave it to a nephew. But I'm sure I have a lot of points. And
that's what I'm saying, because especially with the Game Pass quest, I got to see how else you can rack up points, because I am fairly new to this system. Like, I was just investigating it this last week, so I can't speak on it as authoritatively, but I do know with Game Pass you can accumulate points. So, I mean, why not at that point?
Such a smart way of getting. This is why I'm like, if achievements did this, I would be more into achievements even. But these kind of things where like it wraps you back into the game, by just like doing some cool, unique stuff versus 100 swords. I'm behind, and then returning the investment to the gamer. That's awesome. So new people, I'm not your best. I'll find out prior to next podcast for sure. But it sounds like this is an awesome deal, and more people should do. I mean, if it's giving you stuff, fucking,
Yeah, it's not like you're paying to get. Well, I think if you spend money on the store, you'll accumulate points. I'm pretty sure that's
like points for already getting like a game. You mean?
Yeah, like let's say you're looking forward to, it's 2019. You're looking forward to Jedi Fallen Order. You're buying it on your Xbox.
And then you get like 100 points.
Yeah, kind of like Nintendo does that, but Nintendo just very much like
rips you off later,
like crumbs.
Yeah,
like
and
they'll
their
have
store
a full
sucks.
thing of bread, and they'll shred up the crumbs and be like,
Nintendo can't figure out their own store, Matty. Like I would not buy shit on Nintendo's store unless I have to, and I've had to a couple times. But yeah, their store's terrible. This is an awesome, So everybody, we're not. It sounds like we're both pretty new to it, which is funny because I am an Xbox fan. I get, a lot of people get mad at me, but this is one of the systems, because I ignore this kind of stuff, that I'll definitely investigate this week. It's exciting to me. I hope it's pretty easy to do without doing specific things.
The only thing you got to really manually do is with Game Pass, when I start up a game, it'll be like your daily Game Pass game quest is ready to turn in. You just hit the notification and you turn it in. and you get the points. That's all you got to really do.
Where does it say that?
Well, you turned off your your
okay.
notifications.
So those are. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this. Yeah. So okay. Because I'm like, what game are you playing that it does that?
Like I fired up Gears of War, and they're like, your daily Game Pass quest is ready. I think if you just start up, I mean, it gives you like 10 points, which is nothing when you got Anthony here with 200,000. But like, if you start up a Game Pass game, yeah, you know. So I'm sure there's a way to farm this stuff. But
dude, I'm looking right now on how do I check my Game Pass games? Do you know? Because I'm opening the app on the PC. Do you know?
Oh, I don't know how to go through the PC app.
Okay.
I use the console itself because I am a normie in that regard.
Dude, the PC app sucks. So Microsoft has like 85 stores. It's so weird, Matty. They run Windows. They can't figure out Windows. So we joke and tease Nintendo for not knowing online. Microsoft runs the biggest OS in the world, and they have the worst apps that you will possibly ever deal with. Like,
yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that, because when I was playing Gears of War Ultimate Edition, when we were doing our co-op run through, I was like playing it, and you know, I had my headphones on, I was talking through Discord, and I'd hear the achievement pop from my TV audio, and I'd hear it like very loud in my ears, and I realized that the app was connected on my computer, popping the achievements. It was ridiculous. But anyway, thank you, Anthony, for writing in. Thank you to all of you for writing in. This has been a really exciting show. Perfect timing for the Indiana Jones news to drop right when the show starts.
We nailed it, man.
Yeah, we really did. We really are. You know, we're on the upswing already. So
we're
very
the
excited
top
about this show's
Xbox
future.
podcast, the best Xbox podcast. No one else is as good as us. We're the best.
100%.
If you're watching to somebody else, just unsubscribe. Subscribe here. Get your friends to subscribe. Tell your parents.
Yep.
All that.
Fuck all the other shows. I'm kidding.
Fuck them.
Someone's gonna be like, all right, now I'm really mad at Matty. We're kidding. We like all the other Xbox shows. Anyway, thank you all so much for giving us your time today. We appreciate you. We hope you enjoyed, and we will be back next week with episode 3 of Defining Duke. But until then, take good care of yourselves. Be sure to sign up to the Last Stand Media Patreon for early access to our show, to submit your questions, comments, feedback, all that stuff. Karak, any final words before we shut this thing down?
Hashtag.
Oh, yeah.
I really do think we need to do a hashtag each time. Just, you know. I mean, we can do the same one, but we should
do a hashtag just so we can track feedback on Twitter, like a concurrent, like Defining Duke, just like hashtag Defining Duke.
All right. Except Duke is poop. I just know it's going to. We'll try it. Let's just say hashtag Defining Duke. Anybody listening, please don't make a poop joke, because we're trying to see if people who don't watch and know that we're joking about this, we want to see the reaction. So, yeah. So cool. Defining Duke.
Let us know on Twitter at G27status, at Jeremy Penter. Let us know what some of your thoughts with the hashtag Defining Duke, so we can connect to you. And with that, we'll catch you all next week with Defining Duke episode 3. Take a good. If I could speak this show, this has just been awful. Take good care of yourselves. We'll talk with you soon.
Peace out.
Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from the good old USA. The show was conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Matty's co-host is Jeremy ACG Penter. Defining Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.